your ritual!
Oh man. Woo. Little air raid siren there. Was that what that was?
Gotta have it.
Air raid siren?
Exactly. Bringing back the 90s new metal. You know, you gotta have that.
Hell yeah. So that was 11 Strap. Lice was the name of the song. You can catch that on Bandcamp. This was your old school band, right? That's how old is that band?
Oh gosh, we started back in '95, and we'd all come from various other bands, mainly hardcore straight edge bands, more like kind of integrity type bands. Three of us were in a band called Man Versus, and that was pretty hardcore. Our shows were nothing short of a prison riot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those are great. And then as you get a little older and we started having kids, we're like, oh, you know what? Maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we want to, bring it down a little bit, play to a larger audience. So went a little more of the new metal with it. And
with this particular project, you switched it up a little bit.
Yeah. So we started getting a little more rock and roll in there and stuff like that, and it was a good fit. But our shows went from 50 kids to 300 kids, and I'm like, oh, cool, there we go.
Oh yeah,
I get it. And
right.
Oh, hold on, there's actually females in the crowd. Cool, that helps out even more. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, it was a fun project, and we got asked to play a reunion show back in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Now that's where you guys started to, right? That's where the band is all originated from.
Correct.
That particular one.
Correct. So yeah, Rapid City, South Dakota. It's at that time it was only 60,000 people. You know what I mean? So it's a pretty small place, and the music scene's really small. But what's fun is you'd get a lot of really cool bands that would come through, and they'd need a place to play and stay from between Seattle and Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And so they'd give me a call, and they're like, "Hey, Dan, can we play like a VFW or a house, and we'll just stay at your house and whatever." And so by the end we were doing Clutch and Green Day and Offspring and all these just crazy fun bands. and we ended up getting like 3-4 shows a week. We're like, oh my gosh. So for summers there, I wouldn't even remember days because I'm like, oh, who's staying at the house? It was just it was crazy, whether it was Snapcase or Donuts or again Clutch, 411. It was just great stuff.
Dude, every one of those bands, that's like right around that time frame when they're coming up too. That's so crazy, dude.
Oh yeah, well, okay, so let's get into Clutch. So I'm booking a show with who was it? Four Walls Falling from the East Coast. And I get a call a couple days before, and this guy's like, hey, we saw there's a flyer. Can we jump on it? I'm like, sure, what's your band? He's like, well, we're called Clutch, and we got a little 7-inch record out. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well,
dude, that's a long time ago, man.
Holy shit. So yeah, again, so this is like early 90s. Yeah. And so I'm like, sure, we can guarantee you, a 40-minute set. We won't take a percentage of the sales of your merch or anything like that. You get 100%, but we'll give you a place to play and stay. You'll come into my house. You'll eat a spaghetti dinner with all of us. If you have a problem with any of the other bands, we squash that stuff there. We all have a big spaghetti dinner, eat big, go to the show, have a great time, come back, watch breakdancing movies or whatever, just be crazy, whatever, and then the guys in my band took those guys out to do some cliff jumping and whatnot like that. And it's funny because Neil, the singer, literally just posted that here during the COVID times, posting that flyer saying that was one of the funnest shows he's ever played in Clutch. And I'm like, dude, you played a VFW in Rapid City, South Dakota. Right. And he goes, but it was just fun. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, you've toured the world with Slayer and all these bands. Right. So I'm like, I can't even imagine. And Rapid City is the standout? That's weird. But,
maybe the connection, though.
But that's it. And then, again, we aren't, you squash the big attitudes and stuff like that. You're like, you know what? We're all jamming. We're having a good time. Right. Again, we're all eating spaghetti. We're all, having just a good time. And we're all just people doing our things. Right. We're, again, real down-to-earth stuff. And we're just having a good time rocking out and whatever. So, but yeah.
Well, folks, hey, I always get ahead of myself when I'm excited to do these things. And Dan and I have been like trying to get to do a podcast for years now, I think.
Right.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So my guest here is Dan Dittmer from Dragonland Tattoo and 11 Strap and several other bands. Now I thanks for doing this, man.
Thank you, man. I'm excited.
Talk some shit.
Oh yeah, and that's it. Yeah, we'll go through so many stories that these next couple hours are going to go by fast.
It usually does, man. Oh yeah, it really does. So I like to kind of tap into people's history about music. So when you were coming up, when you were a kid, what were your folks listening to? What were your brothers and sisters listening to? What was in the air in the house when you were a kid?
Okay, that's a really good question. So my mom was a big like Donna Summers fan and stuff like that. Right. So kind of a weird like disco era kind of stuff. I was born in the 70s, so I'm pretty old. So, my dad wasn't really so much into music. So he's he's a farmer from North Dakota, from Leonard, North Dakota. Right. Very conservative. My mom was very liberal. She's from Detroit, Michigan. So, and it's kind of funny.
Polar opposites almost.
Right. And it's kind of funny because obviously Detroit, way bigger music scene than obviously North Dakota. Right.
But she got the funk style of it though. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
If she's loving the disco back then.
Oh yeah, totally. So, and then we'll get into something even weirder. So it turns out that one of my aunts was married to one of the guys from Rare Earth who put out that song. Yeah, who wrote the song, I Just Want to Celebrate. Right. And so I'm like, no way, because I was at her house here a couple years ago for the funeral, and I was like, what are these gold records on the wall? And she's like, oh, don't you remember my first husband was the bass player for Rare Earth? And I'm like, get out of town. What? Oh, yeah, he wrote that song. I'm like, okay, even crazier. What? Okay, so now I get where we get some of that, right? Yeah. But getting back to music, my first records, I lived in upstate New York for a little while, and my first records in second grade were Elvis's Greatest Hits and Kiss Destroyer.
Nice.
So on vinyl, and I still have both of them.
Really?
Yep. And it's funny because my birthday's in January, so I saved up all my Christmas money and all my birthday money.
Yeah.
And my mom took me to Kmart, and I was like, oh my gosh, look, Kiss and Elvis, no way. And it's literally been downhill since then. You know what I mean?
I miss when, like Target's starting to bring back
The
vinyl in the stores and shit like that. But I remember, dude, when they had just racks of the shit, man.
Dude.
And you would find those rare. There was some things you could find at Kmart and Target and different spots. But I miss that. You could walk into a place and check. Mom, I'm going towards the music. That's what I would do all the time.
Oh yeah, and whether you knew the band or not, man, you studied those album covers.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody gets sucked in by those old like Molly Hatchet covers. I'm like, oh my gosh, this must be brutal. And then you get it, you're like, did I get the wrong vinyl? What is this? You know what I mean?
They gave me the switcheroo. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Man, we got to take this back. Something's wrong here. But
now the art from those Molly Hatchet. Now, is that the same guy that used to do the Conan artwork too?
I think it was Frazetta,
okay,
if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah. So, but yeah, amazing.
Frank Frazetta, is that what his name? Okay, so he did do the Conan shit, didn't he?
Yeah, he did some of them. Yeah, and obviously he's since passed away. But it's weird because at the end of Frank Frazetta's life, he ends up having a gnarly stroke.
Oof.
Losing feeling on one side of his body, but he learns to paint with the other hand.
Damn.
And he does just as well with his other arm. I'm like, okay, you were put on Earth to do that.
Right.
And I was like, man, I couldn't do that if I tried.
Doing ABCs?
Exactly. It's the color by numbers over here.
Right.
You know what I mean? Literally. So,
right.
But yeah. Anyways, so getting back to the music, we'll bring it back around. So Kiss, Destroyer, Elvis, whatnot like that, and then obviously then growing up and moving from New York to Los Angeles, grew up with a lot of new wave and then some metal. I mean, like obviously Slayer and all those bands were like local bands out there,
right?
And you're like, oh, okay, cool. They're playing with DRI Excel, you know what I mean? And No
Hold
Mercy.
Hold on a second. We got to back up here a minute here. So you said a band that I hardly ever hear anybody refer to, and that is Excel. One of my favorite fucking skate bands. And
totally.
Hands down, one of my favorite. Those first two albums are still in my playlist to this day. My buddy's brother played me No Mercy.
Yep.
Then he played me the Excel stuff, the Joke's on You, and dude, all of that shit. I absolutely love them. I've never seen them live, and they've come close a couple times. Right. I met the guys who played in God damn it.
Suicidal?
The side band. What is the Groove. Infectious Grooves.
Yeah.
The dude who's, I think it was the drummer that played in Infectious Grooves or the guitar player. One of the two played in Excel. I think it was the drummer. I want to say it was the drummer. Met him outside of that show, get kicked out before Infectious even starts. I'm literally in First Avenue's fucking waiting, right in the front entryway, listening to the damn thing, begging the manager to let me in.
Right, that's awesome. Well, and it's funny. So yeah, obviously a lot of those Venice bands were coming up. And No Mercy, man, great. I'm Evil, EVIL, you know what I mean? And just that real fast, like toppy, like that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is awesome.
Now that's pre-suicidal, right?
Yeah. So No Mercy, all those bands had like the rotating lineup. I think there was literally like 8 guys, and they just kind of swapped out, because Mike was in this, then jumped to that and whatnot like that. So funny enough, with Mike Muir, I was living in Camarillo, California, and this is early 80s, so it's very like nardcore scene, stuff like that. Dr. No, Ill Repute, all this kind of stuff, habeas corpus, all this. And what's funny is there was a grocery store called Alpha Beta.
Yeah.
And I was on one side of Alpha Beta, and Mike Muir lived on the other side on Elm Street. Yeah. And what's funny is because at that time, he had some affiliations with some kind of, we'll say, gang members. Okay, I can say that on the show, right?
Absolutely.
And right by his house, there was this huge brick wall. Well, the gang had then put up a warning: do not come down the street between like 4 and 6, 4 and 8, whatever, or we're straight going to shoot you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, of course, I was skating a Dogtown skate at that time. And, I was pretty punk rocked out. And I'm like, I hope they don't shoot me, but I'm going to go by Mike's house.
Right.
And you'd skate by his house and you'd look over and you're like, okay, you didn't see him.
Yeah.
But then you'd go to the grocery store and it'd be an Alpha Beta, like squeezing tomatoes. And you're like, oh, fuck, it's Mike Muir.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's all like beefy, the bandana to the middle of your eyes. Yeah. And here he's squeezing tomatoes, and I'm like, oh, cool. Do we go up and say hi? Or, just kind of a weird thing. You're like, well, we saw him, so that was cool. But
his brother was affiliated with the Dogtown thing too, right?
Yeah.
He got those guys in Thrasher and all of that shit too. Wasn't there a photographer and his brother had a whole group that all ran with all the Dogtown cats? Right?
Well, and that's it. So I'm trying to think. Was it there was Glenn Friedman? I'm not mistaken.
He photographer?
Yeah, the photographer.
Okay. Yep.
And he hung out with all those guys, and there's a Venice beach tattoo shop that's just all suicidal and whatnot like that. And it's kind of neat, but it's so weird how that branched out. And then obviously when Thrasher came up, I have one of my earliest Thrashers from 1983, and I still have it. And it's funny because I think the trick tip is Tony Hawk going up to a parking block and doing like a rock and roll on it.
Yeah.
And you're like, no way, the kid's like 8 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd love to have this and meet him and be like, so this came out back when you're, you know what I mean? Back 40 something years ago,
right.
So
right. That's insane.
Right?
So insane, dude.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. Again, anyways, going back to music,
we will jump all over the fucking place. I guarantee it. Bro.
Exactly. So the ADHD will derail us every minute.
As long as we'll make it back.
Exactly. So anyways, growing up, so you get a lot of that, a lot of Devo, Oingo Boingo, a lot of that kind of stuff, whatnot. And God, I think I was 11 or 12. I was having pizza with my mom, and I was like, Mom, I really want to try listening to this new punk stuff, and whatnot. And at that time, there was bands like Code of Honor coming out of San Francisco, and obviously the MDC, and there was 7 Seconds and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And it was really fun. So my mom was very supportive, and growing up with a single mom out in California, she's like, sure. And so I'm like, oh, this stuff is great. So of course, then I get a guitar, and the next thing you know, trying to start a band with a couple friends from school, and we're like, all right, well, let's play this fast punk stuff, and it's just simple, 4/4 stuff,
Right.
And we're like, all right, we need a name, and we're at our bass player's house, and we're making hot dogs, and of course we aren't the smartest because we're young dumb kids, and our bass player puts his hand in the boiling pot to grab a hot dog because he thinks it's going to be funny to eat it right out of the boiling pot. And he's like, and he screams, and he throws the hot dog across the room, and it lands in the sink, and it's like steaming. And he's like, look, it's a steamy weenie. And I'm like, there's the name of our band, the Steamy Weenies. Awesome. So my first band was the Steamy Weenies.
Nice.
Yeah, right?
So you started playing guitar. That was your first instrument?
Yeah, not very well. I mean, simple bar chords, and even today, I'm pretty much a self-taught musician.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
Just very emotional, whatnot like that. Because obviously you take your family traumas and you put it into music,
Absolutely.
and you're like,
Yep.
oh, there we go, good way to vent stuff. So. Anyways, and we went through several different band members and several different names. We morphed into a couple different things, and we started a band called Civilize, and that's 2 words: civil, CIVIL, LIES, Civilize. And it's funny because that band picked up traction, and we started playing some shows and whatnot like that. And at that time, Maxim Rock and Roll magazine had just started coming out. And I'd read through there, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like the Bible of punk, cool, and people would send in letters, and there was this guy named Lawrence Livermore who was living up in Mendocino County, California, And he's like, I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'd love to get some more music. And of course, at that time, I'm like, sure, whatever. And so I'd start making him sample tapes of different bands and record him stuff, send it up there. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is great. And so we start this relationship from there, more, just pen pal kind of stuff, whatever. And so he's like, what else could I do? Why don't we be more active? And I'm like, well, you can always start a band or start a label or start a zine or whatever.
Right.
And so he starts all of that. And his band is called The Lookouts. And then he starts Lookout Records.
Nice.
Right? And so his band, The Lookouts, has the drummer for Green Day because he lives up there.
Okay.
And so if you look through the Green Day autobiography book, the first picture is those guys they're wearing my the Civilized shirts.
Nice.
So, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was way back early 80s. This is weird. Again, just a small circle. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of neat. And then when I moved to South Dakota, started the band Straight from the Heart, we ended up doing a small tour with the band Screeching Weasel and Scherzo. And that's when I finally met Lawrence Livermore because they were on Lookout Records.
Okay.
And I met him here in Minneapolis. And we were supposed to play like the Varsity Theater.
Okay.
And this is like 91.
Yeah.
And we get here. Of course, something happens with the theater. We end up playing Felix von Havoc's Living Room with Screeching Weasel, Scherzo, and us. And it's literally to like 30 people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But in a house, probably just awesome.
Well, it was funny because at that time, it was like, I don't know if he had just moved in and, because it was like a normal house. It wasn't like super punk rocked out. We're like, oh, okay, cool. When we played the living room, we're like, oh, okay. But finally being able to actually meet Lawrence Livermore was really, really neat, and we've kept in contact since. And obviously he's traveled the world. He's sold Lookout and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And it just kind of crazy again. Back in the day when you actually had to write letters. You didn't have to text. You couldn't
tape trades, merch trade, any of that stuff.
Exactly.
That was the best, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. And if you didn't send money straight through the mail, you had to go get your money order, or you had to write a check, or something
hey,
like.
Mom, will you write me a
Yeah, exactly. Because I want the new Wretched album or whatever it was. So yeah.
So back then, like, now, what do you remember? What your first guitar was? What was the first one that you ever played? Or
Talcomini, and it was in the shape of like an SG body.
Okay.
And it was really fun, but my style was way too thrashy, so I'd constantly go out of tune. And the drummer for Civilized literally just found some old tapes and sent me the songs via text.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, oh God, they're hard to listen to because again, I was like, this is punk rock. Exactly. Exactly. And I'm like, we really didn't know what we were doing, but it was fun. Right.
Yeah.
So then one of my buddies from high school had a BC Rich bitch. And it was obviously one of the earlier bitches, and I was like, that thing, it looks like you could slice salami with it. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Right?
This is salami. That's awesome.
Yeah, it just looked like you're like, oh, and then I realized that the guitarist for Cro-Mags had one. I'm like, okay, well, if he plays one, I could play one. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I liked it that it had a locking tremolo system, and I'm like, oh, cool. Now I can stay in tune and still play as thrashy as I want.
I was actually going to ask you on that first guitar. Now, if you said it was a SG body style, is what you said. So then down on the bottom where the tremolo's at and all of that was just strings directly into the body and with the springs on the bottom or something.
On the BC Rich or
on the
SG?
On the SG.
Okay, so the SG was a really simple Talcomini. I think it was like $100 guitar, Sunburst, and it had this weird just little bar that you'd put the strings through, but then you'd attach it to two bigger
on the sides, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would just kind of prop it up.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so a fun beginner guitar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But when you're going ham on it, it's just going to bust out on you all the time.
And that's it. And of course, being 12, 13, 14, whatever, and just a lot of energy.
Yep.
I'm jumping off the couch, it just exactly. I'm like, this is the best. So funny enough, Exactly, literally. And so my mom would let us play and practice in the living room and whatnot like that. And we at that time we had a pit bull. I was raised around pit bulls, and my mom would just hold the pit bull and hang out.
You mean the most ferocious animal on planet Earth?
Oh yeah, who hated loud noises,
skittish,
hated the rain, hated everything. And and would play these really ferocious songs and would stop, and she's like, "Yay! Now, do you guys want some cookies and tea or whatever?" And I'm like, "Sure, Mom." You know, it was just kind of funny.
Dude, big shout out to your mom, though, man. I talk about this on the podcast all the time. It's like one of the things I did back when I was younger is that I always praised people's parents for showing up or bringing their kids there and sitting in the back. And then perfect example is the guys from Visceral Reaction. Bucky's kids. So meeting Jack.
Yeah,
so meeting Jack and talking to Jack, and now we set up their CD release party at the Studio B, and I'm like, dude, every one of the parents of the band, I would go up to them and say thank you so much for allowing our lifestyle to move forward, because it's such a when your folks let you make that kind of noise and help your creativity at a young age, it's just going to boost you into other creative things, and I just love it so much.
Yeah. Actually, big shout out to my mom. She was great. She's always supported me, always supported the art lifestyle, the music, everything, and everything. And she still does to this day. In fact, she's coming out in a couple weeks, and we're talking about her maybe moving out from California to here. She's 86.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Her 400 square foot apartment is $2,000 in San Luis Obispo. And I'm like, cool, yeah, you got a 15-minute drive to the ocean, but I mean, your front door is your back door. It's so small. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Literally. Yeah. So, but my mom was really supportive. She'd let touring bands play our living room and stuff like that. And I'm like,
that's so cool, dude.
And some of these guys were pretty abrasive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, growing up that way, my mom was like, "Oh, sure, I like all your friends." And at that time, in the '80s, there was a lot of the two-tone skinhead kind of guys. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And girls. So it's like they were black, Hispanic, white, whatever. And you're like, "Oh, cool." There was none of the Aryan Nation stuff. It ended up, years later.
Yeah.
But none of this kind of stuff. Anyways, so these guys would come over and they'd be doing the spider webs on their elbows with a razor blade and ink in my front yard.
Wow.
Right? And they're gnarly.
Yeah.
And my mom's like, "You guys are idiots. What are you doing? Stop doing that. Get some paper towels." And they're like, "Yes, ma'am." You know what I mean? And here are these guys who are rugged, and my mom's 4'8". You know what I mean? And she is alpha female.
But that mom card, though, dude,
dude.
I don't, dude. I've been in so many situations where I'm ready to fist fight someone, dude. And I'm nose to nose with a guy, and somebody's mom comes out, and I'm like, "Yes, ma'am."
No, and that's exactly it. And I love it. And I talked to some of the people who are still alive today.
Yeah.
Obviously have changed their lifestyles and have families, whatnot, and they're like, "Oh, dude, you did not mess with your mom."
Right.
At all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man,
Spitfire 4-foot lady.
Exactly. And funny enough, so when I was 16, again, living in Camarillo, she'd drive us to the Olympic Auditorium in Los Angeles and would see Fear and JFA and Angry Samoans, and my mom would literally sit out there and just talk to the cops or the bouncers or whatever while the show's going on.
Right.
And those were sketchy times.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was gnarly.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that's awesome. She just drove all of us down there to Fender's Ballroom in Long Beach or whatever. You'd see MDC and 7 seconds and attitude adjustment or whatever.
Yeah.
And she was just so supportive. You know what I mean? So funny enough, moved to South Dakota, lived with my dad.
Now, I got to stop you. What time frame are you at now? You said you were in the 80s right around that time. So is that mid to late 80s before you moved up this way?
Yeah. So I moved from California to South Dakota in 87, graduated high school 88, graduated college in 92, moved up here in 99.
Okay.
So 99, I get a job at Electric Dragonland with Sean Anderson, and I'd been getting tattooed there for a couple years. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to bail on South Dakota. There's just, it was killing me. It was too small, So I get a job with Sean Anderson. I've been there now 26 years, which is crazy because I love the atmosphere, love the people I work with. You get to, tattoos, just some super fun people,
right?
You know, but so been here since '99. This is the longest place I've ever lived.
Right,
is Minnesota, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird.
Now going from so you said New York first, then you go to California, correct?
Yep.
And now in California, now moving from California to the Midwest in the Dakotas, the change has to be just astronomical from, pretty much city living to fucking rural.
Oh yeah,
right?
okay. Well, let me rewind
Okay.
this story. So I was born in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Okay.
Moved to Detroit, Seattle, New York, California, South Dakota, here.
Dude, wow.
So yeah, literally coast to coast.
Right.
And still have friends in pretty much all those states, right? And literally going from California, where my graduating class was 1,000, almost 2,000 kids, whatever, to Rapid City, South Dakota, where I graduated with 26 kids total. Right? I was just like, oh, this is crazy, know. And I knew some of the kids out, the punk kids out in South Dakota, because the band Descent had literally just come through, stayed at my house, whatnot, and I was like, oh, cool. And that was like May, June, and then my dad's like, you want to move out to South Dakota, and I'll help pay for college and stuff. And my mom and I were struggling out in California because obviously expensive,
Right.
So I'm like, you know what, I'll take you up on that. And so I moved to South Dakota, and he's like, we're going to put you in this Catholic high school where you have to wear uniforms and the nuns rule the school. And I mean, it's straight up Blues Brothers where they'd slap you with rulers.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't even funny. Yeah, they were vicious.
Really?
Yeah. So in the Black Hills, nestled in the Black Hills is this Catholic high school, and with one road in, one road out. I mean, it's almost like it was sketchy. You know what I mean? There's no way you could get away.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
They were gonna see you. So, but yeah, and I was like, oh wow, this kind of sucks. But again, going back to knowing the guys in Descent and Painful Extremities and stuff, I was like, oh, this is fun. So on the weekends, I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna go skateboard, and then I'd go hang out with those guys.
Yeah.
And then we started the band Straight from the Heart because when you're 17, 18, you can't be flaming fetus out in South Dakota. You're never going to get a show.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, Straight from the Heart. It's, it's really palatable to the Minnesota or to the South Dakota attitude.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that sounds okay. Then would play punk, and they're like, oh, that was weird, but okay, And then we started booking shows from there, and and by the end, man, we were getting like 600-700 kids, and again, getting to pay Offspring $800, even though their guaranteed was $400, and they were stoked. You know what I mean? So,
in the very beginning too. That's
crazy,
dude.
Noodles is still a janitor at the high school or whatever, talking about fishing, and and you're like, wow, these guys are awesome. So I know they're playing that Yacht Fest or whatever in Excelsior this year. So I was thinking about trying to go out there. Remy from Old 93X lives right over by the shop. I was going to see if he wants a carpool over there or whatever, and just go see those guys.
What a good guy too, man.
Oh,
Remy's
dude,
such a sweetheart.
Oh, dude, he's amazing. Tattoo him and his wife, and it's
Tracy's a sweetheart too.
Oh, dude, amazing. And it's funny because he's from Southern California, more like Simi Valley area, whatnot. And our lives paralleled so much, and we knew so many of the same people. When I started tattooing them, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How did we not know each other for the last 30-something years? Easily, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was so weird, and so when he comes in, it's not even working. It's just, it's like this. We're just, two dudes hanging out.
Shoot the shit hanging out.
Yeah. So
I was super excited to get you on here. I didn't even do any of my commercials that I normally did. I just went right into it. So I wanted to kind of back up a little bit because we bounced right through the music stuff. Sure. So with the stuff that's going on in the house and everything like that, where do you find the heavier stuff? Where do you find the punk rock stuff? Where does that come into play from, mom listening to the disco stuff and that type of stuff? Do you have any brothers or sisters? Were they listening to anything? Or you the older?
Yep. Okay. So let's tap into the first part of that. My mom, again, very supportive of my art.
Yeah.
She living with a single mom who had 2 jobs, whatnot like that, you were left alone a lot.
Yep.
So
same here, dude.
Is failing English, failing history, failing math. Didn't care about any of it. I just draw all the time, right? And so
super early with the art, like you were doing it right away because it was like imagination. You were fucking on it the whole time.
And that's it. That's exactly it. You know, started playing Dungeons and Dragons in the 4th grade when it started coming out, late 70s, early 80s, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. You can escape this crappy world we're in and
everything.
So fun stuff like that, but. My mom was really supportive. She's like, okay, I don't understand some of this. She was taken back about my first album that I bought, the Plasmatics Coup d'etat, where Wendy O. Williams is got the duct tape on the nipples and sitting on top of the tank. Of course, that was my first love, is Wendy O. Williams.
But a big jump from the Kiss album, and I don't remember what the other one was. What did you say?
Elvis.
Elvis. There you
go.
go.
Yeah. So and again, so kind of like getting a little, I was like, oh, okay. So then, obviously, like I said earlier, Code of Honor and Suicidal Tendencies, that first Suicidal album.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay.
Brilliant. It's like a cornerstone for me.
Yep.
When heard I Saw Your Mommy and Your Mommy's Dead, we're like, what? This is amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, just downhill from there. Yeah. So funny enough, so living with my mom out in California, was her and I and our dog and whatnot. My dad out in South Dakota, him and my stepmom, had a kid and adopted 3 kids. So I'm the oldest of 5.
Gotcha.
5 now.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, and it's kind of funny because they're all over the spectrum as far as their musical taste, anywhere from country to Motley Crue to rap to whatever. And it was kind of funny because
what's the age gap?
So my youngest brother, man, he's late 40s now. So and Bob, he's great. He's like the full redneck of the family. Love Bob, and it's funny. He's blonde hair, blue eyes, 6'3", 300 pounds. We look nothing alike, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
You're like, how are you guys even related?
Right.
But we have the same sense of humor and whatnot. And he's just a good dude. Like, if you looked up redneck in the dictionary, it's his picture, his high school photo. And then my middle brother is the rocker. He was a drummer, and Bill, love Bill. I think he's autistically brilliant. Like, he literally gets a guitar for Christmas, because I had a guitar. He wanted a guitar now, right? So he gets a guitar for Christmas. And on my birthday in January, he's like, Dan, listen to this. And he breaks out an Iron Maiden solo. And I'm like, get the fuck out of town.
Right.
What? And because he's rewinding the tape and listening to it and then figuring out the notes. And I'm like, dude, you're like autistically brilliant.
Right.
You were put to do that.
Uh-huh.
So he's shredding on the guitar. And I'm like, oh, dude, you already blew me out of the water.
Right.
Then he gets a drum set because guitar's too boring. So literally within 3 months, he's doing Neil Peart stuff. And I'm like, get out of town, dude.
Right.
And he's 15 at the time, working on 16. I'm like, oh, dude.
How old were you at this time?
18, 19, right in there,
Gotcha.
And so I'm like, oh. So we kind of joke around. We started playing, we started jamming together. And it was funny because being like, from his autistic mindset, very metronome, very, very. It has to. It's very.
If you're out, he's going.
Yeah,
you messed me up.
Yeah, very precision. You know what I mean? And I'm definitely more of an emotional player.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was kind of crazy that way.
I love it.
Do we have to cut to a commercial?
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay, cool.
I just, I wanted to go back because we jumped way ahead of where we were at. ADD. Dude, that's just how it works.
and that's it. So, a funny story. I'm 16 years old. I'm like, you know what? Okay, so I've started a band. I've put out a little zine called Vicious Monkey. We interviewed like Aggression and a couple of DY and some of these other like punk bands from like Oxnard and whatnot like that, because we'd go to a lot of the Oxnard nerdcore shows. And what's funny is like, I'm going to try booking my first show. And so I'm 16. I rent out the barn, the Red Barn in Santa Barbara, California, and it was $100, right?
Damn.
And then it was $100 to get sound. I'm like, okay, so when you're 16, I'm pulling weeds out in the chili pepper plant field from like 6 in the morning till 6 at night to make
$5.
Oh yeah, yeah. Literally at the end of the week, making $110 or whatever, for 5-6 days work. So I'm busting my hump that way, and so I booked this, and we're trying to find bands to play and whatnot like that. And so back then there was a band called Condemned.
Okay.
And obviously speed metal band, and I was like, oh, cool. And I'm like, again, I only had their phone number, and otherwise it's all mail.
Yep.
And so I'm like, okay, I want you guys on the bill, but I need to get some sort of logos, all this. And my mom's like, oh, we can drive up to and pick them up. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So we'd be driving to like Santa Barbara or whatever, listening to like Sacrilege AD.
Right.
And my mom was like, okay, well, I don't understand what the guy is singing. I'm like, I think they have a girl singer for this part. And she's like, that's a girl, and whatnot. And she's like, okay, well, it's got kind of a beat, but she didn't mind, because I was obviously a big fan of like early Septic Death and stuff like that. Just some really abrasive raw power, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But man, just totally supportive. And it's kind of funny because around that time, obviously, I'm meeting a lot of people, and in that time in the '80s, there was a lot of punk rock kids running away because there was the whole satanic panic that happened in the 80s.
Yep.
And, I'm totally dating myself here. Anyways, we'd be driving, and at that time, being punk rock or metal or whatever was not really cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you get stuff thrown at you, whatnot, called every name under the book.
Even from either side, too.
Yeah.
You think about, I just watched an interview with Billy Milano, and he's talking about working at a bar and being a bouncer at a bar. And the guys from Metallica are in the bar, and he's they're sitting in the corner, and he's like describing the bar where you got to go in, you got to come all the way back, and he's like making friends with these guys, but they're scared because all of the hardcore guys and the skinhead guys want to kick the shit out of these guys because they're all they're all long hairs, and so they can't get into it. You know what I mean? So. He like makes friends with them, brings them up to the front. And he's like, yeah, me and Cliff Burton, I can't remember what band they were watching, but the band's playing, and him and Cliff Burton are rocking out together. And he's like, I'm standing there and I'm getting hit in the face with hair and all this shit. You know what I mean? But other people were mad, want to start fights with them. And Billy Milano went over there and was like, hey, you're my guys. We got it. You know what I mean?
And that's it. And that was the weird thing about it. So when I booked this show, it was like punk bands, straight edge bands, metal bands, whatever. And I'm like, dude, we're all in this together.
Right.
We're all angry. We're giving the big middle finger to the world, to society, to whatever. You know what I mean? We're all angsty. We're all like,
So you were able to successfully join those folks together?
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Back then?
Yeah. And then so moving to South Dakota, we did the same thing, and again, because South Dakota, the boundaries were very set.
Oh, I'm sure.
Punks hung out here, metalheads hung out here.
Yep.
And I'm like, you know what? Screw that. That guitarist is a ripper, but man, he's playing more like a DRI style.
Right.
We got a drummer over here in the punk scene who's playing more like the blasty kind of beats.
Right.
Let's get these guys together and start doing some cool shows.
Now, let me ask you this. Now, you mentioned DRI and that crossover right there. What are some of the bands that you can remember from that time that were like very similar to DRI where they were crossing over? Is there anything like, because they used a lot of punk, and then they started using the riffs for metal, and they went a bit further than.
Oh yeah, definitely. Again, attitude adjustment, Septic Death. You had a lot of really great bands, and early Agnostic Front goes from like
dude.
that, the really
they were fun, man.
Oh yeah,
they were fun.
And that's it. And you're like, dude, we're all in this together. Let's just be pissed.
Did you do any shows with Blind Approach when they were around too?
No, and that's kind of funny that you bring them up because a band from South Dakota, NHC, ends up playing with Blind Approach. I ran into the singer for Blind Approach here a couple years back at like a Cro-Mag show.
Yeah.
And we're talking, and he's like, oh, South Dakota, do you know NHC? And I'm like, actually, I do. I'm jamming with one of the guitarists now, Pat, who is in Cromlech.
Oh, wow.
From up here.
Yeah, I know Pat.
He's from Rapid City.
Wow.
So I knew Pat from Rapid City.
Yeah.
He moves up here, obviously starts Cromlech.
Yeah.
They do great.
Yeah.
You know, they're opening for Pantera
Yep.
and all that kind of
Yep.
stuff. And so again, small world, tattoo him and his wife, you know, and
God, I've known Pat for years,
he's a
dude.
great guy, guy. You know what I mean? And
Always been a great guy too, dude.
Yep.
I don't. From the time I met him till today, dude, he's just the biggest sweetheart of ever, man. I saw him at a Crypticon, and he was like, he had so many treats and presents for me, dude. He's just like, hey, man, we haven't seen it here. Oh, by the way, I got here.
Yep.
You know, it's just we traded, you know, tie-dye shit and all.
Oh,
all kinds
dude,
of stuff.
yeah, he's amazing. Big into to rock hunting and whatnot like that.
Yeah.
And we actually jammed over at Will's place, Will 1459. Here, God, 2 Christmases ago, because we were trying to get something going, and we started something, and it's more of a DRI Napalm Death kind of style stuff, and
2 bands that played last night.
exactly right, which was crazy because. Again, I get off work late, and I'm like, oh, by the time I get down there, Melvin's will just be done, Napalm Death, and I'm like, and then I couldn't remember if DRI was last night or tonight.
Yep, same night.
And I was like, seriously?
Yeah, my buddy was over there last night. We were talking about it this morning, and he said that it was pretty thin crowd at DRI, but I was like, dude, Napalm Death Melvin's, that's going to stomp any other
easily
show in town, really.
Easily. And you know what, and that, even at that time, being a promoter myself in the past, that's where you're like, you know what, maybe we try to slip them in on an earlier bill, do a matinee show at the same club, you know, or whatever, you know, or whatever, because that...
Dude, back then you could do shit like that.
Yeah.
Like that stuff doesn't happen anymore,
No,
man. That bums me out because it was so much fun to go do the all ages show, and then if you were able to do the drunk show the following night, 7th Street Entry used to do that shit all the time.
And see, that's what I miss. I was literally just joking with... God, I can't even remember. It might have been Jack. I can't even remember from Visceral. I was just like, man, those afternoon matinee shows were great.
They really were.
So start at 2 or 3, get done by 6. You can still get home if you have, you know, homework or whatever you got to do, pending your age.
Yep.
And then get ready for school the next day. Because how many times has there been a Sunday night show and you're just like, oh, I'm not getting home till easily midnight.
Yeah.
I was literally just telling my buddy Phil today how I saw Crowbar at 7th Street on a Sunday when the Saints just beat the Vikings here.
Yeah.
And, of course, Kirk's like, all right, go Saints, and everybody's like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like that. And again, there's 89 people there at 7th Street on a Sunday to watch Crowbar, and I can't even remember who. And I was like, dude, it's like watching a Crowbar band practice.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah. Fuck,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I've seen so many damn shows in that little room, man. Holy smokes.
Yeah, when I moved up here, ended up starting a band with Pete from Holding On, Steve from Bodies Lay Broken, Jason from Real Enemy, and my friend Steve from Russian Attack. We were called Hope You Choke, and we ended up playing.
What a great name, dude!
Right? we're like, we want it simple, and so,
I still love steaming weenies though.
Right,
That's the best, dude.
So, anyways, so Hope You Choke plays 7th Street with Martyr AD, Comeback Kid, and with Dead Hens Rising. And it was packed.
What a sick lineup.
Oh,
man.
my God. Wow. And I'm like, okay, this is silly. It's nuts to butts from beginning to end, to out into the street. It was crazy, so much fun. And I'm like, oh, we have to bring our A-plus game on this. You know, just fun. But, of course, there was some straight edge crew kind of thing that was pretty tough at that time. And we'll leave names out and whatnot. But, you know, they were given the bouncers trouble and whatnot like that. But anyways, long story short, every band just ripped it up. The guys in Comeback Kid were they were like, you guys were fun. This is great, you know. And obviously I tattooed 4/5 of Martyr AD. So you know, it was like just seeing buddies. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And again, Martyr AD, one of the bands who should have been top tier.
I agree. I agree, man.
Amongst, you know, American Head Charge and all those bands, you're like,
didn't Martyr break up like right around the same time that Head Charge was like coming up, like right before they really popped? Like Martyr broke up somewhere in between or before that time.
Yeah,
there was like a weird time gap. Like I want to say 98ish, 97. Were they like?
Okay, so no, actually, Martyr AD started around 2000.
Okay.
That 12-step. Whatever.
Didn't they
album.
split into a couple different bands though too?
Yep. So the original lineup with Mike singing and all that that lineup ended up playing with Head Charge at First Ave.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my gosh, 2 stellar Minnesota bands that should already be on another level.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then so there's some some breakup in the Martyr AD camp. They got some new players. They kind of changed their style around just a little bit, got on Victory Records, toured with Haunted, stuff like that. Mike goes on to form a couple other bands. He's now in, obviously, Cobra Czar and whatnot like that. But yeah, you know what? Again, even like...
I love that dude's tone.
Oh, dude, and it was funny because I was making a checklist if I were to start a project band, who I'd want in that, and Mike's top vocalist. And I came to him and I'm like, dude, I got this idea for a project band. And he's like, well, if it's not, more of this angle, I'm not really interested.
Right.
I'm like, dude, I get it. You're busy. You got other stuff.
He just rips though.
Oh, dude, his voice is stellar. And I think the show that stood out for me the most with Martyr AD, obviously seen him a number of times, is when Lamb of God was on tour with Anthrax. And this is when Lamb of God had just changed their name from Burn the Priest to Lamb of God, got on the tour with Anthrax. We were coming through. They had a day off, so they came up here, played Triple Rock. Martyr AD, Bongzilla, and and Lamb of God
lineup.
Oh, dude!
In the Triple Rock,
maybe 100 people, right? And you're like, oh, and of course, Martyr rip it up. They're doing great. Bongzilla do their thing. You know what I mean?
2000 though, huh?
Yeah. And
I could have swore it was a little sooner or earlier than that.
They were before that. They were Disembodied.
Okay, that might be it. That might be what fucked me up.
Yeah, and so that was Disembodied. It's more the hardcore version of Martyr AD. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
now, was Tony playing guitar with them at that time?
That's a good question. I can't
Tubes?
remember. Yeah, I can't remember because did he leave and start Devil
Him and
Inside?
Joel. Yeah, him and Joel did. Joel Anderson.
Yeah,
I
so
believe that's his last name, Joel Anderson.
yeah, something like that.
Killer drummer.
Oh,
He's such a sweetheart of a dude too. I love that guy.
And again, here, now we're going back a couple decades, So mine's not what it used to be. So I'm trying to keep everything straight here. So, but I think one of the funniest stories is, so now we're at the Triple Rock. Bongzilla has played, Martyr AD has played, and Lamb of God's setting up. And Joel from Martyr AD comes up to me, Joel Johnson.
Yeah.
And he's like, Dan, they literally just woke up Randy from Lamb of God. He's still drunk from the day before.
Oh.
He literally just passed out 3 hours ago. He's been up, since the previous day.
Now, he was notorious for that shit back then, too.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Totally.
They used to, kick that dude's ass all the time, didn't they?
Yep. So, literally, the entire Lamb of God guys are on the stage. 2 guys, one on each side of Randy, are walking him up to the stage. So Randy's got his arms out, Jesus Christ pose, one to the left, one to the right, around each other's necks. He gets propped up against the mic stand, you know what I mean? And you can tell he's struggling.
Yeah.
And one guy gives him a beer, the other guy gives him a cigarette, and he kind of rubs his nose and takes a puff off the cigarette, has a little swill of beer. He takes a deep breath. He's like, we're Lamb of God. And they nail it. Dude, your hair stood up on end because he sobered up in 3.5 seconds and demolished that club.
Right.
Kids flying off, everything. Dude, I was expecting exercise trampolines. Kids are just flying off everything. It was just chaos.
Yeah.
So I'm tattooing my buddy Phil today, and I bring up that story. He's like, "That's funny. I was the first one kicked out of that show." I'm like, "I remember that because you dove off the at the Triple Rock where they have those, before you go down onto the floor, they had those little the little I don't know, bar or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He ran, jumped off that, and then jumped onto the crowd.
So the ramp.
Yeah,
You're talking about the ramp that goes up? Yeah.
Okay, so if you're by the bar and then you go down the stairs, and then here's the floor and here's the stage.
Yep.
So he ran, and it's where the bar stools are, he jumped on that counter and then catapulted off that.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, duh, Lamb of God, but
Yeah.
And so he's like, yep, I was the first one to get kicked out. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And I'm like, God, are we that old? You know what I mean? And he was talking about how he went to Napalm Death last night, and I'm like, oh man, one of my favorite bands. But again, I get home at 7:30. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. And then I'm like, oh, I got to eat, feed the cat.
Yeah.
Get downtown and park. And and next thing I know, they're like, thank you, Minneapolis, as I walk in, you know what I mean? I'm like,
yeah.
So, yeah, kind of funny.
Yeah, that's insane, man. I don't know how many times I've done that exact same thing, I can't even do that. I just tell people I don't go out on school nights anymore. That's just how it is, man. I can't.
Literally.
5 a.m. in the morning is pretty tough to get up and shake it loose and be ready in an hour to get to work and work a full day of just... You know what I mean?
Well, and that's it. So, flash back to South Dakota when we were having bands stay with us, and we were having 3-4 shows a week.
Right.
And I don't even know who's sleeping in my
Anywhere. Yeah.
So, funny enough, like the band Rorschach from New Jersey is staying with us. We had played this fest and out in South Dakota, and it was like all hardcore fest. It was great. It was an outdoor fest.
Yeah.
It was Rorschach. It was Demise. It was like, it was just an all-star lineup.
Right.
And so these guys are staying up at my house, and it's like 2 a.m. We're listening to some old Merciful Fate, and I have a 7-person couch. Like, seriously, 3 guys could sleep toe to head on it. You know what I mean? It's just a huge couch.
Yeah.
We're bouncing up and down like kids at a slumber party. You know what I mean? Everybody's doing air guitar. We're just like this.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, dude, I got to get up and get to work in 4 hours, And so I'm like, guys, I got to crash out. Well, I guess sometime during the night, our landlords had heard that we were having a party or people were all over. And the lady we were renting from knocks on the door, of course, at 2:33 in the morning,
right.
And the guitarist for Rorschach opens the door, and she's like, I don't know who you are, but you shouldn't be here. And he screams and slams the door on her face. Of course, we wake up to the eviction notice on our door. And I'm like, well, it was a good run. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, just fun stuff.
Yeah.
But I can't do that anymore.
Now, bouncing back to getting into the booking stuff at that particular time. How you were 16 at that time when you booked that first show you were talking about?
Yep, in California, and so then.
Now, when you get to South Dakota and you start doing that stuff, like how do you find venues in rural South Dakota to do everything?
Okay, perfect enough. So funny enough, I go to this Catholic school. And still being straight edge and everything like that, I become one of the founders of the MAD organization out there, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, whatnot like that. And so I have that cred, and being out there, all my friends from both coasts, they're like, hey, dude, you live in the middle of nowhere. We need, again, a show between Seattle and Minneapolis.
It's such a gap.
Oh, dude. It is the boringest drive.
Dude, wow.
So we start reaching out. So I make friends with Terry Taylor from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, who was in Suffer, Nose of Ranvier, 1,000. He's amazing guy. His birthday's coming up here too. And anyways, and so we start making this weird makeshift tour route from Sioux Falls to Rapid City, through Wyoming, through Montana, through Idaho, and all this. And so my friends are like, hey, do you know somebody here? I'm like, I'm going to give you 6 phone numbers, and you're going to fill up all those dates till you get here. and then Sioux Falls, then Minneapolis.
Dude, you were a key linchpin in that whole deal. Dude. That's
literally.
sick.
So it's kind of crazy because obviously bands like Undertow from Seattle, earlier straight edge band in like the 80s, 90s. John Pettibones has since gone off and done several other bands like Himsa and stuff like that. They'd come and they'd stay at the house, and again, would make spaghetti, have a great show.
You take care of them.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the thing, man.
Yeah, and that's it. And I'm like, dude, you guys can wash your clothes here. You can do that. One of the funniest stories is Blood for Blood was coming through with Stigmata from New York, and obviously Blood for Blood are really tough guys out of Boston. And then Stigmata out of New York, and this is so early that Blood for Blood has Gina, a female bass player, right? And she is the alpha female of that band.
Right.
She was tougher than any of those dudes.
Right.
And dude, I've met her, and I had the heart-shaped eyes immediately. I'm like, you're tattooed, you're tough, you're in Blood for Blood.
I love you. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. We might as well get married.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But she was great. But anyways. So we play the show, come back to the house. And at that time they had basic contracts, you know what I mean? A case of beer or whatever, some real simple stuff. And so they'd come back to the house, and Blood for Blood, or I'm like, okay, guys, you got your case of beer. We can either go up the street to the titty joint and you guys can watch some strippers, or we can hang out here or whatever. And Buddha, the singer for Blood, turns around, he's like, no way, you have Toy Story on VHS? I'm like, yeah. He's like, cool. So I'm watching Toy Story with Blood for Blood and Stigmata, some of the toughest guys in the hardcore scene.
So awesome.
And I'm like, these guys have like "fuck you" tattooed on their necks. And I'm like, holy shit, this is almost like Quentin Tarantino movie, like just weird. I'm like, this is so crazy. And they're like, wow, that was a really, really entertaining movie. I'm like, is this happening right now? Because I'm like, I don't see this happening if you're on the East Coast with those dudes.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
But it was cool because you actually got to know the people, and you're like, oh, that's rad. Worlds Collide come out from Washington, D.C., and they were all part of various other bands, Damnation AD, whatnot like that. And Hillel from Worlds Collide, Damnation ID, he was the only non-straight edge kid in the whole group. So there's like 12 straight edge guys hanging out in my living room. We're all watching TV and whatnot. And I'm like, hey, who's for a beer run? Jokingly. And Hillel looks at me with these big eyes and he's like, hey, I'm in. I need some beer. And I'm like, you know what? Let's go. We'll get some Taco Bell. Who else wants Taco Bell? It was like, oh, and the guys were kind of bummed that I was taking him on a beer run, but I'm like, dude, he's human too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're all in this together again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And being in like straight edge bands and stuff like that, we'd play the craziest parties.
Yeah.
And people would be like, oh, you're straight edge. You hate people who drink. I'm like, there's 4 of us here. And I'm like, within
we can't hate too much.
Yeah. Right. Like there's 200 people here and there's 4 straight edge people.
Right.
And so, but that's why I straight from the heart would play Beastie Boys, You Got to Fight for Your Right to Party.
Right.
So we'd finish with that. And people would lose their fucking minds.
Yeah, dude.
And have a good time. I'm like, fuck yeah, we're high-fiving everybody. Yeah. We're just having a good time.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's music. Let's enjoy. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man.
And that was the fun part. And it's really kind of got away from a lot of that. Yeah. It's gotten really sterile. And again, getting back to, it's definitely wasn't what it used to be, and I don't want to be that old guy back in the day. You know what I mean? But
I always wanted to be that guy that like housed the people and like fed them and had a good time with them and like, you know what I mean? Been the liaison, and when they came into town, like I worked at the Mirage for many years and got to know the Fishbone guys, and every time they would come into town, we tracked down bags of weed for them or whatever, it was like, but they would always call, hey, chill, what's going on? We're coming to town. I remember they did a show here, and this was before Rage Against the Machine like really blew up. Like they were right on the cusp of it just exploding, right?
Right.
And their drummer was playing each day of the tour. He would rotate his set, and they would have a specific amount of space that they would rotate each night. And I'm like, I just saw Rage Against the Machine, and the dude played backwards, and he had these big fucking deals, and da-da-da-da-da. and that drummer went off. He was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
he stole that shit from me. He got that from me, and then like they would just get into these stories. But
Right.
I absolutely loved being that guy that they would call, and you'd hang with them, and just you know what I mean. You got to see all the cool shit behind the scenes of a band that's like, you know, they were on MTV at the time.
Oh,
they were doing all this crazy shit, and like I couldn't believe it. I'm standing next to Angelo and all these people, and
Right.
it's great. It's
Yeah,
so insane.
And it's funny. So again, being out in Rapid City, South Dakota, I get a call from a band from Seattle called Christ on a Crutch. And I'm like, cool, 3-piece, kind of like punky, they have pretty abrasive political songs, it's a good day when a pig dies or whatever,
Right,
you know what I mean?
right, yeah.
It's hardcore.
Yeah.
So we set up a show. I'm going around, and of course, back in the day, you made flyers. We'd make a stack, give them to each high school, then it'd get distributed that way. We had a whole network of people in Rapid City because, again, there's nothing to do. You give somebody something to do, they're stoked, man.
Right.
They're on the radio. And so we're like, all right. So again, starting to build up a scene. So I'm going around and I'm giving flyers out to various record stores and music shops. Going to this one records music store, and I give a flyer to the guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, Christ on a crutch, we can't have that. What is this crap? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, whatever, buddy. I'm just, again, supporting music. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So anyways, they play, they do great. We have a good time. They leave, whatever, whatnot. Right? Well, here, flash forward 9 months, I'm watching MTV and Foo Fighters are on. And I'm like, no way. The bass player for Foo Fighters is the bass player for Christ on a Crutch.
Oh, crazy.
And I'm like, no fucking way.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so then I went back to that music store and I'm like, oh, so by the way, you remember that band you didn't like their name, Christ on a Crutch? He's like, yeah. I go, the bass player's in Foo Fighters. And this guy's face just drops. And he's like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, again, try not to be a dick, dude. We're all in the same thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Come on.
Yeah,
you know.
That's crazy, man.
So, yeah, just fun stuff.
It blows me away, when you look back at some of the stuff that, the things that you did from state to state and starting the new thing and being like the linchpin in that whole deal in such a small area in fucking the Midwest. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I look back and I think about, the flyering and putting the flyers together and doing all that shit back in the day. It was so much different than it is now.
Oh, totally.
And like, so many I was going to commend you on this too. Now I've done 300 and this is my 310th podcast, okay?
Congrats.
You were
awesome.
You're a singular guy, an artist, a musician, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But out of 310 episodes, you are by far one of the if not the first and main person to ever take the promo and run with it on your own.
Oh, dude, love doing it.
Now I find that so crazy because you think there's 3 to 6 to 8 to 9 guys in some bands. You know what I'm saying? Not one guy in that whole deal is gonna. You know what I mean? Even after they do the podcast half the time, they don't even share the shit with their friends or anything like that. They're like, "Oh, it's your show. You do your thing." But I love the fact that I was like, I need these things, and you send it to me, and then I'm like, I'm looking at the pictures, and I'm going, I'm just gonna make something out of this. You know what I mean? And then all the things that you did by taking all your photos of the art and like all that shit, I had all those ideas. So I'm like, this is so sick that he's like making these collages and doing these, like, dude, it was so awesome to see that a singular guy would take the initiative to like enjoy coming on the podcast and like,
oh, dude, I'm excited.
yeah, dude, I very cool, man. I appreciate it so much because it was like every time I'd open Instagram, hey, you've been tagged in this, and it was like, here we go with a reel there, and then a reel on Facebook, and it was all over the fucking place, and I was like, dude, why isn't everybody in a band, at least 2 people in a band? You know how it's usually one band dad who's like, hey, we're booking a show, you guys cool playing with these guys? Yeah, we totally want to do it. And then it's like, hey, I just spent my own personal money on these 500 flyers to set them at the studio, and 300 are still sitting there.
Oh, easily. They're coasters or whatever.
Yep.
And that's it. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And it's funny because then obviously I started that label, FTW and U2. And it's kind of funny because I'm
now,
like,
how did that get started, dude? Like, how'd you get that whole thing going?
okay, real quick, do you have to do a commercial or anything, or
No,
do
we're
you
good.
just want me to keep going?
Keep rolling.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
Well,
we're good.
all right. So back in 2015, I ended up having like this weird emergency open heart surgery, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I had 2 arteries. One was 50% blocked, one was 75%.
Jesus.
But what's even weirder is they go in and they're like, oh, you're missing 2 arteries from your heart. You weren't born with them. Your heart started this artery and then made capillaries from there. And he's like, we've never seen somebody in their 40s live to be this long with a heart like that, but you're doing it.
75 and 50% block, dude?
Yeah, we're the first 2, and then
Nothing.
Then 2 on the side were just capillaries, not even arteries.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and they're like, we've never seen this. This is cool as shit, but you'll be dead by Christmas if we don't take an artery from your leg and attach it to your heart. Yeah, exactly. So grenade in the koi fish pond just devastates my world. You know what I mean? And I'm like, but at that time, I was booking out like 18 months for tattooing. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm like, I have people coming in from Japan, Europe, other states, whatever, to get tattooed. What am I going to do? They're like, who cares? You're going to be dead by Christmas if we don't do this right now.
Wow, dude.
They're like, we have to do this next week. So between now and then, don't do anything that's going to, accelerate your heart or anything like that. Get ready, start getting all your business.
Don't get a boner.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And, of course, you're like, damn it. But you're like, okay, well, yeah, I want one last hurrah. But anyways, so, I go through the heart surgery, all that kind of stuff come out, and you immediately have to go through physical therapy. So I'm on a treadmill doing 1 mile an hour and huffing and puffing. And you're like, oh my God. So you're like relearning how to walk and do all this kind of stuff, where the lady next to me with an oxygen tank is doing 3 miles an hour. And I'm getting pissed. I'm about to kick her air oxygen tank over because I'm like, fuck
You just go, fuck
yeah,
me.
exactly. Because it drops you down to, you have to have somebody wipe your ass. I mean, it's very, very humbling, right?
Yeah, I can imagine, man.
Oh, it was rough. So I have to now rethink my entire life. I'm like, dude, I've been in bands. I've been doing all this. Cool. What haven't I done? I'm like, well, I've always wanted to do a record label. I got some cash saved up, and I know some local bands. And I go, there hasn't really been just a label from Minnesota that dealt with Minnesota bands.
Right.
Whether it's punk, metal, rap, whatever, rock. I go, I just want to start something that handles Minnesota bands.
Yeah.
Again, like we had talked earlier, if I have a problem with you, I call you up, we meet at, for coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
You have a problem with me, we do the same, squash some stuff, move on. And I'm like, plus, it's Minnesota. There's so many bands that deserve attention. It's ridiculous,
So much talent here. It's ridiculous.
Like you said, ridiculous. And I was like, so I want to do a label that if I were in a band, I'd want this label to do it for me. You know what I mean? So I'm doing promos and I'm doing those big newspaper print posters and all this kind of stuff. You buy the vinyl and you get a poster, stickers, all this stuff. So your money feels well spent.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're like, cool, good quality product, heavy vinyl, nice cover.
Yep.
Had Vince Locke do some of the art covers. He's obviously done Cannibal Corpse, whatnot like that. And I'm like, dude, I want to do that. But going back to exactly what you just said, you take these bands on, and even the band mom or dad, whatever you want to, the parent of the band, even they didn't want to do stuff. And you're like, dude,
I'm on the label. I don't have to.
Yep.
You have to do it.
Yep. And I'm like, oh, okay. So here I'm down meeting with Steve in Golden Valley, at the record store. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, buddy, I got to consign these. And, and he has In It Records. And so I'd bounce things off him. And he's like, cool idea. Don't put an ad in this. And I'm like, cool. Right. You've had a label a lot longer than I have. Yeah. So, but again, so in 2020, Trinity Test and Bonefire are about to go on tour together. We got some really good shows lined up, right?
Yeah.
And it's literally like a fest in Chicago, DRI in Milwaukee or whatever. I mean,
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, these are banger shows.
Right.
I spent 20 grand on banners, vinyl, shirts, hoodies, stickers, pins. I mean, it's crazy, right? So we're supposed to leave in, God, what was it? June of 2020. Didn't expect COVID. COVID shuts everything down. Tours canceled. Clubs are gone.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
And then
All the way across the United States.
yeah.
Other than Florida, Texas, and South
Right.
Dakota.
Right? Literally.
Yeah.
Literally. So I'm like, you're kidding. And then, of course, during the COVID times, the bands have internal problems, members leave, blah, blah, blah.
Things change.
Yep. And I'm like, oh, so you aren't even the same lineup as this full-length record that we just put out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And now I'm...
So you can't really push it.
Nope. And they aren't playing those songs anymore. And, yeah, you're like, oh... Okay, so literally, I have just stacks of shit in my garage.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, so funny enough.
Go down to the fucking, make sure you bring some of it down to the guitar
to
shop.
Rob's place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got a ton of stuff down there now.
Well, and it's funny because we've talked about this. I'm like, dude, it would be a whole nother presentation, rack. It's so much stuff,
Right.
But, yeah, it was just crazy. So... Here we are. I'm like, all right, well, we got to get these bands out there. So, of course, I get them on Spotify, Apple Music, blah, blah, blah. We start doing this. And they're like, okay, cool. Well, at least we're getting some play that way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And we then, at the end of the first year, they're like, okay, what did we make off all this, all these streaming services? And I'm like, okay, Bonefire made the most, and I print off like 15 pages, front and back, of all the downloads throughout the entire world, Netherlands, all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, you've made $11.82. And they're like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, that didn't
What did you expect?
Yeah, I'm like, that didn't even cover 1 month of Spotify or whatever it was.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, just keep it. And I'm like, okay, cool, thanks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dissident Clone comes in at second with $8.94.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And again, with Chad from, what is it? What's his new band? Inhumane Scourge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
Yep.
War Plague,
Yep.
and then obviously Pat from Ex Demonicon.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they're a two-piece grind band, Dissident Clone.
Yep.
This is going to be easy, working with two guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? They end up doing a small tour with Deterioration, going out to Boston or someplace for some grind fest or whatever, and do great.
Yeah.
They hit Milwaukee, and they sold a bunch of merch.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. They played the arcade there in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, kids are like out in the street for both Deterioration and Dissident Clone. This is awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but, and it's, again, I was like, had to pull some cards out of the hat. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, dude, I haven't talked to you in like 6 years. Are you still booking shows? No, but I know somebody who is.
Oh.
Cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so you have to, it's kind of nice to know people in various states because you never know when you have to draw that card,
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
I never did that shit. It was so hard for me to call in those favors, even if I brought bands here to jam with us or whatever. I always took care of bands. You know what I mean? That was like my thing. That's why I love that so much. The history of you doing all of that stuff is because I always wanted to be that guy to like help these cats get into your town. You know, that was my favorite thing as a kid, is to find that album, like you said, with the Molly Hatchet covers, you know what I mean? To bring it full circle is to find those great bands by the covers, by, word of mouth and you know what I mean? Or like No Mercy to Excel to Suicidal Tendencies, and then beyond that, you know what I'm saying? Crumbsuckers, Anacrusis.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Things like that, To find those bands was amazing to me, but to turn my friends and their friends onto it, or we used to make best of tapes all the time. We'd find, you'd take an Exodus tune here, Sacred Reich here, and then you'd throw in some Circle Jerks, and then you'd go over to here, and then you'd go to Bad Brains, and then you'd come back. You know what I mean? Like Danzig over here, and then Misfits here, and then you'd go on every single border of mayhem and just have it on a cassette and bring it to parties with buddies. And that was my favorite thing, man. So like the fanzine, when you bring that shit up, I have traded so many tapes with so many fanzines and sent out my shit to different fanzines. And I always wanted to get into that thing, but I was never a writer. I just couldn't, I could talk somebody's ear the fuck off, but writing it down to be able to make it there are so many writers out there that paint, you know what I mean? When they're talking about it, and then this band comes on and then they go on to a tangent of how, something correlates to how this band looked on stage and the way the light's hitting this band, this guitar player's thing. And then they go into, and of course they break into their momentous tune. And you know what I'm saying? Like that was my thing that I always wanted to do. So anytime, like I had a buddy, Dan, and he was friends with so many of these Swedish death metal bands. And like, he knew the cast from Entombed. He knew the guys from fucking Unleashed. He knew like all of these people. So when they would come to town, he'd be on the list all the time. I'd look over and there's just this little nerdy kid. I'm like, what are you doing here, dude? And he'd hand me a zine and go, I know all these guys because I've traded tapes with them for the last 10 years. You know what I mean? I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
So it's funny that you bring that up because I was going through some old boxes in my garage and I was like, oh, Greg Anderson from False Liberty from Seattle. And I'm like, God, why do I know Greg besides False Liberty? Well, he obviously owns Southern Lord Records now. He's in Sun O, and he was in Brotherhood, a straight edge band that I knew, and Engine Kid and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God, we were 15 years old trading tapes. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I still have like the False Liberty cassette tape, the demo that, you play and record and you're like, oh, right on. And you had a sticker for the cover or whatever.
I have a huge box of just miscellaneous CDs and tapes and shit that I've had forever. I've got like a bag of old, shows that we had done with Sublevel and whatnot.
Right.
And my wife has been trying to get me to get rid of that shit for years. And I'm like, and honestly, I've told this story on the podcast a bunch of times as well. I have a friend who makes records, and I met him out of the blue, and he comes up and he's like, hey, man, do you have any of this old stuff that you guys did way back in the day when they were cassettes? And I'm like, dude, I don't have any of that shit. I never kept any of it. It was for everybody else.
Sure.
It wasn't for me. Like, you know what I'm saying? When you're playing the music wasn't for me. It was for everybody else. It never became me until I started writing about me and about my experiences. It was always about giving it to everybody.
Oh, okay? Totally.
So the dude finds 2 demo tapes that we did way back in the day. He finds them in Finland.
What?
This guy has got them in Finland. He buys them from the guy in Finland. He goes and he makes my first 2 demo tapes on record.
Nice.
And he brings them and it's got the covers and everything on the little spacer. And I'm like just totally blown away. You know what I'm saying? Like, holy shit. And the fact that he found him in Finland and that this random dude has a section of metal from Minneapolis and he has all of the local bands that I grew up with. He keeps them. You know what I'm saying? He sells them off. Like, it blows my mind that a random dude in Finland has this metal from 89 to 2000s. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, where the fuck do you hear this music? Where does this, And again.
How did that get out there?
Yeah.
Well, and again, tattooing Pat from Cromlech, somebody just started reissuing the Cromlech CDs and whatnot like that. And so he's like, I have a stack of them in the garage still from when we originally had them.
Right.
But he's like, he's talking to this guy in Europe who's like, you have those originals? Yeah. If you still have the original recordings, I'll re-release it, but I'll clean it up, you know what I mean, through the newer processes.
Did he end up doing it that way?
Yeah. And so I was like, that is awesome. You know what I mean?
So he had the old DATs, and did he send them to the guy, or did he?
Yeah, I can't remember how this all worked out. If Pat then
I'm gonna have to ask Pat.
Yeah, if Pat contacted the original guy who recorded, or how that all worked out. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, and I was like, oh, I remember so Pat and the drummer for 11 Strap are really good friends. Jeff Thrash is our drummer, and him and Pat were really good dudes. They had jammed together and whatnot like that, and knew each other from South Dakota. Again, small world. Everybody knows everybody.
Crazy, man.
You know, and we end up playing with them in Rapid City. And obviously Scott Neverdall's the singer, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so he's got dreadlocks, and Rapid City had never heard anything like that.
Yeah.
And we're like, what the fuck? They were kind of like the weird X-Hoarder, Planet Terra, whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you're like, wow, this is really good stuff. So when bands would come through, your band would be like, oh, they drop tune. Oh, they're adding the jigs. Oh, they're doing this. They're doing harmonics. You know, and we're like, fuck, now we got to do that or whatever. How are we going to incorporate that?
Right.
So then going back.
Growth.
Yeah, exactly. So then going back to that early band, Straight from the Heart, Wayne Evans from Rabbit Records out of Illinois contacts me. He's like, hey, you guys are playing that South Dakota Hardcore Fest, and this is like 2-3 years ago. He's like, do you have any of those old, DATs or the reel-to-reels? And I'm like, actually, I do. And I go, we have 4 songs that were never released, too, that were supposed to be on a 7-inch and never got put out. He's like, send them all to me, and I want to put out like a collective 12-inch record with everything that Straight from the Heart did, from the demo to live on the radio to whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So that comes out, and he only made a couple hundred of them, which is awesome, but he did a great job. Right. And so he's been doing that with Descent and Dead Silence and all these old bands. And Wayne's a great guy. I've known that kid since he was, I think, 11.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And his old boss, Mad Jack from Chicago, from Body Basics, apprenticed him, and Wayne owns a tattoo shop out in Illinois, and it's just great. It's weird because, again, small circles. Everybody knows everybody. Right. And Wayne was working with, and I'm going to totally drop the ball, just passed away in Chicago, Steve. Worked with Nirvana, worked with...
I don't...
old recorder producer, was in Big Black, if I'm not mistaken. Steve Albini.
Oh, there you go.
So, anyways. And he's like, yeah, send this, and I'm going to have Steve redo this. And I'm like, Steve Albini? I'm like, get the out of here.
Right.
You're kidding.
Right.
You know what I mean? And again, it all goes back to everybody knows everybody. It's just the weirdest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But fun. So, yeah.
That's so crazy, man. It really is. It's such a small, I mean, the world is so damn small, dude. It's crazy.
I was in Seattle in 2010 at a national tattoo convention, and my clients had come out from South Dakota, and I was doing bodysuits on them, and we took the day off, and we're kind of goofing around in Seattle, and I hadn't been to Seattle in forever, and I don't know if you've ever been to Seattle.
I have not.
Okay, it's literally like whoever wrote the Dr. Seuss books made Seattle, because it's all windy, curvy, and then it hops back up. You're here at the wharf, and then now you're on the interstate, and you're back in, it's just weird, right?
Yeah.
So we keep coming up to this 9-way stoplight, which is in the middle of Seattle. There's literally 9 stoplights. Yeah. And so you're like, where do I go? And my buddy's driving, and we'd go, come back, and we end up in the same lane. And like, how do we do that? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, look at this Jeep in front of us with all these punk stickers on it. And I'm like, oh, cool. Thrasher, whatnot. And I'm like, oh, cool. And around the license plate, it said Pettibone, True Till Death. I'm like, that's weird. I wonder if that's my buddy John Pettibone, obviously from HIMSA and Undertow and whatnot. Yeah. And the light turns green, and he goes down this hill. I'm like, follow him. And he's like, okay. So we go, and I go, if he stops at the stoplight, I'm getting out, and I'm running up there, right?
Yeah.
And so he stops. I get out, and I come booking it up to the car, and I see his reaction in the rear view mirror. He looks over, and he sees me running up, and he hits the lock button and jumps back like I'm going to shoot him or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, John Pettibone from Himsa Undertone? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, dude, Dittmer from South Dakota. He's like, holy fuck, Dittmer, pull over. And so we go and we pull over and we talk for like 20 minutes.
This is a fucking stoplight in Seattle. That's just crazy.
Just
dude.
a random, And so he's like, oh, dude, I'm up at the club over by the Space Needle. Tonight, I think Creator was playing. He's like, dude, you're permanently on the guest list. You just show up and you're into whatever show. Doesn't matter. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, awesome. I literally get back in the car with my buddies, and my girlfriend looks at me, and she's like, oh, we're in another state, and you know somebody off the interstate. And I'm all, really? You're mad at that? And I'm like, okay, whatever. But it was just it was, again, such a small world.
Dude, yeah.
It was great.
My kids even laugh at that today. You know what I mean? Like, we could be anywhere, and somebody will pop up, hey, what are you doing here, man? I haven't seen you in years. You know, that type of shit. But my wife she'll be surprised when we go somewhere and I don't know somebody. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and that's it. Being here for 26 years now and involved in tattooing and music and whatnot.
You know everybody.
Oh, dude, and trying to date. Wah, wah, wah. Oh, dude, everybody knows everybody. Yeah. The date
You're
turns
not
into
dating that chick, are you?
No, and that's it. That's it, dude.
Yeah.
And we'll
Dan,
talk. No, we'll talk off mic on some of that. But yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Or the date turns into a consultation. Oh, I want a sleeve and that, or you tattooed my sister and my mom and blah. And I'm like, oh god, here we go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're just like,
you
whatever.
send the text. All right, emergency, call me.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, my friends. He zipped his junk up in the zipper. I gotta go.
The Frank and the beans. I don't know what's going on. You know?
Absolutely, dude. That's funny as shit.
Right.
Well, we should take a listen to what we got for our second song. Oh, Apple Juice. We're gonna do Apple Juice next.
All right, perfect for 11th Strap. This is off the demo.
Yeah.
This is the demo song.
Now, how did you come up with this?
So funny enough, Apple Juice. Our singer came up with these lyrics, and it's kind of funny because Apple Juice and a couple of Ripe and a couple of the other songs were somewhat controversial because 11 Strap in the day, we were notorious, not funny enough, we dated a lot of strippers, and I'm just going to put that out there, okay? Our singer was a male stripper. So
awesome.
Between that and me tattooing a lot of the strippers, our parties were nothing short of an 80s frat boy movie. Topless girls walking around. I mean, bands playing. It was crazy. It was literally like one of those 80s movies.
Yep.
It was ridiculous,
Yep.
you know. So this is Apple Juice is one of the songs that came from that kind of time. We'll play the song and then I'll go into a little more depth on
All right.
it. So, but
Sweet.
yeah.
Well, folks, take a listen to some Apple Juice, and we'll be right back. Funny stuff right there. Oh, that was fat fingers. Didn't mean to do, didn't mean to do that. Do me a favor, folks. I forgot to do this at the very beginning. Again, I was super stoked to actually get into the conversation with Dan here. But do me a favor to check out Lowbrow Saints Tattoo Collective at 3500 Minnehaha Avenue in Minneapolis. Give them a shout at 612-353-4755. Or shoot them an email, lowbrowsaints at gmail.com. Hours are Tuesday through Saturday, 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. Closed on Sunday and Monday. Also, we are sponsored by Shred Den. Do me a favor, check out the Shred Den, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., Saturday, 11 to 5, 9100 85th Avenue North, Suite 100, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, 763-350-2191. They are on all the social media sites, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, www.theshredden.net. And also, do me a favor, these guys are going to have a huge sale. They're having a huge sale this weekend through the whole Memorial Day weekend. So tomorrow, I believe they're having some really knockout sales right now. I don't have the promo for it up right now. I didn't end up grabbing it for some stupid reason. I meant to do that, but I had so much going on today. I wanted to make sure that I had everything done. The new sponsor for us is Justin Boney's his design company, Narwhal Design Solutions. Very cool. They just did a logo for us to do a t-shirt logo. So we're trying to get everything figured out for this logo. Justin came through like a gangbuster, man. This dude is a phenomenal artist. If you're looking to get a logo design, CD artwork, he's done stuff for beer companies. He's done all kinds of fantastic artwork. Again, Justin Boney at Narwhal Design Solutions. Narwhal Design Solutions, Justin Boney at gmail.com. Make sure you hit him up if you need any artwork done. He's done all kinds of stuff and so many fantastic designs. Now, this is something that it sucks to do this stuff, but I kind of have to do it. I moved into a new space. You guys have enjoyed the new space here, and we've been doing a couple podcasts out of this new space. By the pure love of the icon, Robert Carlson, giving us this spot, the Shred Den studio. But I do need to shoot this at you guys. If you just please consider donating to the podcast. All you have to do is scan the QR code on the screen right now, select a tip amount. I thank you so much. If you can just donate anything, it'd be great. Just to kind of keep the doors open here. I'm really kind of struggling right now. I want to try to keep this podcast going. I've been doing this since 2012. It is 2025 right now, so we've been doing this for quite a while. I was just having a conversation with somebody earlier today about the podcast. I started the podcast on just an audio type thing, shooting it to Spotify and Apple iTunes and Stitcher and all these places. I had my own website. I did all this stuff. I just got tired of the whole support thing and the whole you gotta record the files, edit the files, do all this stuff, put it on your website, do all this thing. Doing that solo as a content creator is very difficult to keep up on all this stuff. So I took a lot of that audio stuff down from the place that I kept it, right? I took my website down, I did all that, and I moved everything to YouTube. So my YouTube channel is primarily where you're going to find all the content at now. So I'm trying to keep everything as nice as possible, kind of upgrade things and get things going. So tips, anything would help very much. So thank you very much for all the support through all the years. I appreciate you guys. Sorry to keep this thing long-winded and all that shit. And but I really wanted to get it out there. I wanted to get into the conversation with Dan right away, so I didn't want to bore us down with that right away. But thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. Dan, thank you so much. Now with the apple juice, you said you were going to give some more backstory on that one. What?
Okay, so kind of funny. Real quick, Justin actually helped with the layout of this 11-strap album.
Oh, nice.
And
Justin Boney, right?
Yep,
yeah,
nice. Great dude. He'd
Yes.
been getting tattooed at our shop from Tom Strom back in the day and whatnot like that. So I've known him a long time.
Yeah.
Just a great dude. Real professional. Gets stuff done. Really easy to work with. Anyways. Besides that promo for him, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Well,
right.
it's great. Going back to apple juice, it's kind of funny. So that whole song was one that was we were supposed to do some stuff with Rabbit Rabbit, and there was controversy with especially that song, and their digital artist didn't want to type out the lyrics because he didn't understand the lyrics and he thought they might be too controversial. So that was one of the songs I wanted to play here today, just for the simple fact that times have changed and whatnot like that. That whole song is literally about our singer dating a stripper, and he was going to school at the time and then kind of male stripping a night, whatever, right? And he dated a female stripper, and he'd come home and he'd have to do like his college work and whatnot. He got his degree in sports, physical,
therapy or whatever,
repair, whatever, therapy. Anyways, so she would try to distract him by masturbating in front of him. And so that's what that whole song is about just being tempted.
Right.
And he's like, dude, I got to stay focused, but,
the apple, it's right there.
Exactly, the apple juice. And then about just temptations. And the whole song goes into the snakeskin robes and eating the apple. And so you get some of the Adam and Eve creation and temptations. And Adrian's a great lyricist and love that guy. And he's just, it's funny because even when we're in man verses and stuff like that, just a showman and whatnot like that. But it's so funny because he brought these lyrics and I'm like, oh. And then it's even funnier to know the girl he's talking about. You're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense now. And, again, and, God, I want it, and I don't want it, all that kind of stuff. That's the chorus. Because, again, trying to stay focused, but everybody's trying to derail you at any time, So that's what that song's about. But it was just funny because I'm like, oh, your graphic guy doesn't understand where we were at in the 90s. You know what I mean? That was a whole different time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, yeah.
That's killer, man.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Sorry to keep looking away. Rob said this to me, one of the podcasts. He was like, he said, dude, every time you look at the screen, it throws people off. And it's like I've got so much stuff to push buttons and like try to make sure we're on here and things are scrolling and doing all of this nonsense. So I apologize if it throws you off at all.
Not at all. And I love the eye candy that's in this room anyways, because I was like, man, I could probably donate a whole bunch of stuff, for this room. That's for sure, But
feel free, dude. I've got a lot of space.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
I have so much stuff, and the crazy thing is that like I don't have all of it out. I mean, I have all the room, but I have,
Oh, yeah.
And then, guys like Justin brings me some of his Surly art. And
and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I have the same one in my bedroom,
Yeah, dude, I got that on the trade. And he it's funny because I started doing tie-dyes, right? And he's like, really like this one. And he kept saying, dude, I want to buy that one. So I'm like, cool, I'll put it aside for you, dude. No problem. We'll square it up. No problem. How many times he's given me Cymothwa gear and all that other shit, right? So I'm like, I was going to give it to him anyway, So he's like, hey, well, I'll give you this. And I look at it and I go, oh, I'm not even going to tell him I'm going to give this shit to him for free anyway.
Right.
But he knows I'm a huge Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And then he just recently gave me the original artwork that he did for that design. So
which is great. Yeah. I try to use that because I stole it off your page, and then I put it on that last Instagram that I had put up because I'm like, oh, that thing's sick. Yeah. You know what I mean,
dude? He did a bunch of variations of it too, and it's like I want to use every one. I don't want to not use any of them because they're so fucking cool, man.
Yep. Because I remember he had done some stuff. Obviously, when I had the label. And I put out the Coffin Rights. He had done their layouts and shirts and hoodies and all that kind of stuff. And again, really easy to work with, real pro guy, and even working with Rob Shredden over here, man. I was down there and I was like, being a musician, and I'm like, oh my God, just the eye candy. I'm like, you got the BC Rich, you got the Legion, which I've known Chad Pettit from Legion. I've known him since he was 13.
That's why you were saying to the guy out there, nice shirt.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, I've been friends with Chad forever because he was in Suffer, and he was in, Floodplain and Texas or Tennessee Murder Club, and
those dudes were bad ass, dude.
Right?
So I met one of them cats out of the blue somewhere at some other show, and he was like, he said what band he was in, and I was like, oh, cool, man, I've heard of that band before. So we leave the show, and we're kind of hanging out, and he goes to his car, he comes back, and he gives me some gear. And I'm playing this shit going, what is this,
Right?
dude? So we were trying to get him on the podcast like way back in the day, and there's something happened. I don't know. How long were they together? I don't remember.
Tennessee Murder Club?
Yeah.
Like 3 years.
Okay.
So then they kind of broke off, and that was kind of COVID-y times, just pre-COVID. And then Suffer, one of Chad's original bands, get back together, put out some goodies, and kind of all over now. Chad's an Anger Rot. And
nice.
So he's also got a podcast.
Wait. Which guy is he from Anger Rot? He's like
a singer guitar.
No way, dude.
So
I met him in Sioux Falls.
Mm-hmm.
I seen him
Slam Dakota.
I seen him at Slam
Sure.
Dakota, and I met him because him and Natanic are good buddies. Right?
Sure.
So I wanted to get Anger Rod up here to play, and they were hiring drummers at the time. So it was right before I hurt my back. So it had to have been 2020, so 23 maybe-ish.
Yeah.
Around that time. And we were trying to get him up here, and I really wanted Anger Rod to come up here because they are phenomenal, dude. They're so much fun.
Yeah.
They're cool. Like their whole
setup and everything. Yeah. And Chad goes totally pro with that. And it's funny because he just messaged me. They have a podcast called The Growl now. And he's like, dude, we got to get you down to Sioux Falls to do a podcast. I'm like, okay, just name the week. I can only do Sundays. And he's like, cool, we do Sunday mornings.
Right.
I'm like, I'll come down Saturday night. We'll fuck around and, you know what I mean, hang out. And I've known that kid forever. I have a picture of Straight from the Heart playing Club Blitz, which is Tony Brommel's club in Chicago, which was across his basement club across from Cabrini Greens, right? And I'm playing my BC Rich, rocking out on this little stage.
Right.
Chad's in the background. He's like, 15 maybe. He's got full mono. We're just, I mean, you couldn't have, exactly. You couldn't have asked for the weirder thing.
Right.
But again, known this kid forever, and he's just great. A great musician, and it's funny because their drum lineup is ridiculous. I mean, he's like, oh, dude, we got Mike Smith from Old Suffocation to come in. And I'm like, oh, my God.
Now, here's the thing is Scott Schuler, they're like, what, maybe 10 episodes in? 7 episodes or something like that? Mm-hmm. Now, Scott Schuler, do you know Scott, too?
Oh, yeah. And it's weird because he gets tattooed by Nick, who's another tattooer that I tattoo. So, again, everybody knows and everybody. Yeah.
So out of the blue, I see Scott talking about this podcast, and I just subscribed to their shit on YouTube within the last, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy to me because you see the dude, he's going like this, but I didn't recognize the guy. That's what's so crazy, dude. And I was asking him to come up here to do my shit.
Right. Yeah, I'll bug him about it then.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And it's funny because I've tattooed Chad since I started tattooing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's kind of funny because, again, we know all these same people.
Yeah.
And one of my friends, Jasper, is from Sweden.
Yeah.
And he is a writer for the Swedish music rock magazine, right? And it's funny because he'll interview Bathory, Metallica, Lamb of God, all these kind of stuff, and does the interview, puts them in. It's all in Swedish. I can't read Swedish, so whatever. But he was coming over to Sioux Falls. He was doing a foreign exchange student kind of thing, and he wanted to get tattooed, and they're like, oh, my buddy up in Rapid City will tattoo you. So that's how I met him, and we've been friends ever since. Well, funny enough, he'll come back, and I've done his sleeves, his upper body, whatnot like that. And he'll bring just these weird rarities from Sweden, of course, because I think there's, 8 Swedish musicians, and they just change bands, and they're all killer.
Yeah.
Killer, whether it's Helicopters, it's Entombed, it's whatever.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous, right? And he's like, hey, do you like the band Turbo Negro?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I know those guys, and they put out this Scandinavian leather record, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. He's like, and I got you one of the 12 promos that they made. And I'm like,
holy shit.
Okay, what is this? And it's not only a CD, like a totally limited edition CD that they only gave out to certain people, but he's like, he gives me this little leather. It's almost the size of a poker card, right?
Yeah.
But it's a leather case. It says Turbo Negro, Scandinavian leather, embossed on it in like gold or whatever, fancy. And you pull it out, and it's a little mirror that says Turbo Negro. It's a Coke mirror. And I was like, no way.
Wow,
and it's
that's
funny,
awesome.
being straight edge, I was like, this is funny because me owning this is even better. And I'm like, this is so funny. And I'm like, this would actually sell well.
Yeah.
And so when I was tattooing Rob Shred Dan, I'm like, showed him that, and he's like, oh, that's funny. I don't know if we could really sell those if that's what we wanted to promote.
Right.
But those would be hilarious.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So, but yeah.
That's some shit that I wish I had in the 2000s. You know what I'm saying? Because we were partying like madmen back then, you know?
Oh,
you
dude.
pulled that out and like, hey, man, here, little gift. You know, all those parties, you're just like, here, and everybody's using it.
Right. And so funny enough,
ridiculous.
We're going to slide into getting into like the tattoo promo. I was like, you know what would be funny? Because when I first got to Dragonland, we were doing a lot of conventions. So I'm in New York, I'm in Texas, I'm in Portland, Maine, whatever, with Sean. And he knows everybody. So you're talking to the elite, Paul Booth, you know, Jack Rudy. I mean, you're having dinner with these guys.
Right.
And Paul Booth's like, oh, yeah, I just tattooed Pantera, and I got Slipknot coming up and whatnot. And you're like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
But you're talking like this, you know, so there's no big, like, you know, air about them, you know. But so we're going around, and I'm like, God, what would make my business cards stand out? And of course, especially in late 90s, early 2000s, I'm like, what would make it so people would also want my business cards? And I'm like, I need to figure out a place that will print on zigzag paper, because I think that would be the funniest thing, and just hand those out, because, you know, as soon as you give it to one person, that thing is going to blow out that way. You know what I mean? And everybody's like, what? Who's this? How do I get them? I want to make this. You know what I mean? And it would just be funny because...
Well, dude, it was the weed grinder. You know, and the weed grinder's been huge. The fucking Gorgatron came, you know, they came with the weed grinders. They had fucking glass pipes. They had everything. You know what I mean?
Well, I was going to say, because wasn't Cephalic Carnage?
Yep, they were doing that shit.
They had all that kind of stuff. And I'm like...
They were one of the first bands that I'd ever seen do that.
Right. So...
They're a Colorado band, aren't they? Cephalic?
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of funny. And then obviously going to different states and running into people. We were out in Portland, Maine, and this is early 2000s.
Yeah.
Portland, Maine's right off the ocean. I mean, and it's January, so it's freezing, it's snow, all this. And again, it's Paul Booth and all these really big name tattoo artists, right? And so, you know, you get to meet a lot of people, and then Sunday night you go have dinner with them, and, you know, you're getting fresh fish off the ocean from that day. And as much as I love, like, the Red Lobster or whatnot, dude, nothing compares to, like, a California or a Maine, right fresh off that ocean. And you're like, oh, you know, this is just the best. But anyways, wearing a death metal-y shirt, especially at that time, it was funny because some guy comes up to me at the convention. He's like, oh, my God, you like this band? I can't remember what, probably Suffocation, whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm the manager for Malevolent Creation. And I'm like, shut the fuck up, you know? And he's like, I got their new record and a shirt out in the car if you want it. I'm like, duh.
Yeah, right.
You know, so of course, then we swap stuff out. And again, like going back to what you said earlier, I miss the days of swapping things out with people. It was all trade. You know what I mean? You know, and it wasn't, oh, I'll buy your CD for $6 or whatever. You're like, hey, I'll give you a CD if you give me, or whatever, you know, a shirt, you know. And it was just that, and it was kind of like an unwritten law.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, Rob comes in. I'm like, dude, I'm just going to give you a shirt. You've been here so long.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right.
And, of course, I'd be making bigger guy shirts because we're all
Right.
getting bigger. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but I miss those days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so 11th Strap ended up playing a show with AFI and At the Drive-In and Still Life.
Yeah.
And it's like a freezing, I think it was like a November out in the Black Hills. It's like 12 degrees outside, maybe 20 degrees inside. It's freezing. 11th Strap starts playing, and the top E string breaks on my bass. And I'm like, motherfucker. And I literally turn around. The bass player for AFI hands me his bass. He's like, it's tuned to what you're playing. Just plug in and go. I'm like, no way. So we swap out basses. I play the rest of the song. I turn around. He's already restrung and retuned my bass and hands it back. I'm like, get the fuck out of town. He's like, dude, we just got off tour with Offspring, and this is all we did for the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you are amazing. So my appreciation for that band just fucking through the roof.
Right.
I'm like, you guys are straight
solid people.
Good people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, that's ridiculous. Then the guitarist for At the Drive-In comes up and he's like, man, I love your set. I want to swap you out our 7-inch for your demo. I'm like, okay, cool. And I can't remember his name. He's got the big afro. He's in obviously Mars Volta now.
Yeah.
Ridiculous musicians.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Way
Mars Volta's stupid.
Way beyond their time. I mean, seriously, they were like, they were like the Rush or the Zeppelin of hardcore punk or whatever.
Yep.
And we're like, wow, that's just like another level of brilliant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But just the people you got to meet, obviously Snapcase, great dude. Still talk to Dustin, and he's great. Known him since Libido Boys.
Right.
And Straight from the Heart played that show out in South Dakota with Libido Boys 2 years ago. Yeah. And I hadn't seen Dustin forever. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, this is crazy. We've known each other.
That's a name, dude, that I haven't heard since I was fucking a kid, Libido Boys.
From Mankato.
Yeah.
And what's funny is Straight from the Heart, and we played our first show with the Libido Boys. We ended up playing with them. This last show made our 7th time playing with the Libido Boys. And I was like, dude, we've played with you in Sioux Falls, Rapid City. I can't even remember how many places we played with those guys. But in the early days, the late 80s, and early Straight from the Heart days, we played with the Libido Boys in Sioux Falls. Dustin's sitting on a beanbag after the show at this house party. And I'm like, dude, what's the matter? You look really sad. And he's like, I'm straight edge. Everybody's partying. And, I don't drink or do anything. And I'm like, dude, we're all straight edge too. Who gives a shit? And we like dogpile on top of him and, give him a wedgie or whatever.
Yeah.
We all start goofing around.
All love, yep.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, just have a good time.
Yeah.
Let's crack open some cold grape sodas.
Yeah.
And get stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just fun because, let's just have a good time.
Yeah.
Because the real world, let's face it, sucks. Okay?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And music, great outlet,
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. So now we kind of scratched the surface early in the conversation about how art has been a thing for you for a really long time, sketching, drawing, doing things like that. When do you take it, and like what year around do you start finding interest in tattooing? Like how does it all become something for you?
Okay, very good question. So kind of funny, back in New York, 2nd grade, I start, mom's doing her thing. So she puts me in these YMCA art classes, drops me off for like 2 hours, and then she can actually go do whatever, get groceries, whatnot like that. So I'm building up my drawing skills at that point. I get to California, and it's kind of funny. So get out to California, get into the punk and metal scene, and I'm like, oh, wow, a lot of these kids have some tattoos. Not very good tattoos, mind you, but tattoos. And I'm like, wow, that's weird.
Crosses, stars,
weird. You, FTW, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatnot. Even early Metallica or
Stick
Slayer.
and poke still, just
total. Little skull, crossbones, whatever. And it's funny. So hanging out with some of the goth girls, one of my friends, Gina, she had a couple little, onk and whatnot like that.
Yeah.
And we're talking, and you realize it's something that nobody can take away from them. You go to the grave with this. This is longer than marriage.
Right.
You know, you wake up with it, you go to sleep with it every day. It's
Right.
100% part of you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, that is awesome. It's a big middle finger to the world.
Right.
You know what I mean? You
Right.
can put something on you, whether it's good, bad, whatever, or, you know, whatever. And again, that's your thing. I do have a pretty crazy story that we'll segue into if you'd like.
Absolutely.
So here at Dragonland, and this kid comes in. This is a good 10 years ago. Kid comes in. He's heavier set, just about to turn 18, into high school, you know, senior, and like Dungeons and Dragons gamer kind of kid, you know what I mean? And he wants this little tiny sword on his arm, and I'm like, that's it? And he's like, yeah. And he's a big kid, so he's 320. You know what I mean? He's a solid kid for being 18.
Yeah.
Right. And he comes in, and we set it up, and comes in for the tattoo, and I'm tattooing him. I'm like, yeah. So you know, a little sword. And he's like, dude, you don't understand. This is so cool. This is something nobody can take away from me. You know, this is just for me. He goes, I've been molested by everybody in my family.
Oh.
And it very Harry Potterish. They kept him under the stairs.
Yeah.
I mean, it is rough. He's going into the story. I'm 2 seconds from crying. I'm like, you are fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, so fuck all of them. I'm getting this. I saved up this money, and I'm getting this little sword. I'm like, fuck yeah, buddy. That's awesome.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't see him for probably 6 months. And he comes in, and he's got a girl with him. And he's like, I'm like, hey, dude, what's up? And he's like, oh, tattoo's looking good. I'm like, yeah, it is. Right on. Who's this? He's like, oh, Dan, this is my fiance. And I'm like, oh, shit, you got a girlfriend. Fuck yeah, dude. You're building up your confidence. You got a lady. Fuck yeah, this is rad. You know, just stoked for him.
Yep,
you know,
yep.
He's just beaming, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's good to see you guys. Well, cool. You know, congratulations. Well, they leave. Flash forward 2 years, right? I see him, and he's kind of walking down the street, kind of frumpy and whatever. I'm like, oh, dude, long time no see. How you been? He's like, yeah, I'm all right. And I'm like, oh, cool. I go, God, it's been a couple years. I go, last time I saw you, you had a lady. You know, did you guys get married? And he's like, well, that's kind of a weird story. And I'm like, oh, fuck, here we go.
Yeah.
You know, I just...
Can of worms.
Yeah, the Pandora's box is just opened.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm like, well, if you don't mind me asking, what happened? And he's like, well, you remember when we came in and saw you, it was a Monday. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember it because I remember who was working that day and whatnot. I'm kind of OCD that way. And he's like, so we leave, and he goes, we kind of get in this weird argument. And he goes, it was just over something completely stupid. So this little molehill blew up into a mountain. And he goes, we decide we aren't going to talk to each other till Wednesday. It's Monday. We'll call each other on Wednesday. So we don't say anything that...
Harsh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, dude, you're smarter than me. You know, I mean, already.
We need to figure this out right now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because that's what I would have done.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm like, good on you, dude.
Yeah.
You're figuring this out.
Yeah.
So Wednesday comes and goes, nothing. Doesn't hear from her. Thursday comes and goes, nothing, right? Doesn't hear from her. Friday, he gets a call from her sister, and she's like, oh, my God, we are so glad we got a hold of you. We knew you were engaged, you're in love, blah, blah, blah. Well, on Wednesday, she was hit and killed by a car crossing the street. And I'm like, oh my
goodness.
Gut-wrenching, right? And I'm like, oh, you're kidding. And this sister goes, we know you were engaged, all this kind of stuff. The funeral's tomorrow. And this is a Friday, so funeral's on Saturday. We want you to be there. We want you to, obviously, see the family. We all want to hug you, right? Yeah. So he goes to the funeral, and I'm like, fuck, man. My heart's already dying for this kid.
Yeah.
And so everybody's like, oh, it's good to see you. She loved you. You guys were a great pair, blah, blah, blah. The good thing is the doctor said she was hit and killed so fast she really didn't feel it. And he was like, oh, well, that's good to know. And he goes, She goes, yeah, but the baby survived for 3 hours. And he's like, baby? He didn't even know she was pregnant. She didn't even know she was pregnant. Hence why they were arguing on Monday. You know what I mean? Because her hormones were all crazy. And I'm like, dude, should I just kick you in the balls right now? Or should I, I'm like, holy fuck, dude. What, and you hear these gut-wrenching stories almost daily.
Right.
And so when people are like, oh, you're a tattooer, you have an easy job. You're like, dude, not only do I have homework every night, I'm in mid-50s. After this, I have to go home and draw for next week. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I constantly have homework. But then you get, you're a psychologist. You get to, a poor man's psychologist. You get to hear every story.
Yeah.
And daily. And these last 2 weeks have been devastating. I will come home and pass out.
Dude, you know what's crazy is I just talked to another tattoo artist in town, and I've been trying to get him to come on the podcast. You know what I mean? I want to support people's art endeavors and the things that they've done for so long. I'm such a huge proponent of art. I think it's one of the best things that a kid can ever get into. And if your family can push kids to do any type of creative art, anything like that. But having a conversation with him today, as a matter of fact, and we were discussing scheduling issues and things like that. And he said exactly what you said when you came here. Now, and you laid it out the way he did. He's like, dude, I love my job. I love what I do. It's one of my favorite things in the entire world. I get to be creative my whole life.
Right?
But he's like, it is really, really taxing on a person's psyche, because and he's a very kind of he's not an extrovert at all. He's sang in a band. He's done all the shit. He's a fucking, he's out there and he tears it up when he does it.
Right.
He's a professional. You know what I'm saying? But he said, it's very difficult for me to do a whole day's worth of work, get off at a certain time. I only have so many hours to go home and do my homework, do the things that I need to do. But he's like, I'm absolutely exhausted. And for me to come on your podcast at 8, 9 o'clock is something I'm not sure that I can do. And I respect that 100%. One, he's being honest with me just flat out.
Oh, yeah.
Two, he's sharing something with me that I have absolutely no real clue about. You don't think about that.
Oh, yeah.
Hairdressers, tattoo artists, people that deal with the public at all time, and you're face to face with your customers for hours on end, and they're going through an emotional experience, especially when you're getting tattooed. That you're boosting all of your endorphins and everything's coming out, and you're the closest person next to them right there.
And that's it.
So be a difficult situation. Man.
Well, and it's weird because it's this weird, metamorphosis where you're changing their appearance.
Right.
So you're changing the way they look at themselves and the way other people view them.
Right.
And you realize you do that every day. You change people's lives. Right. And it's weird to sit back because whether it's initials on an arm or it's a full back piece or whatever, it's something to that person. And again, going back to this kid who got the little sword, you know what I mean? That meant something to him. And I'm like, dude, it's only like a 20-minute piece, 15-minute piece at the most. And I'm like,
the fact though that you were able to do that for him and the explanation behind it,
right,
has to make you feel like a fucking champ. You know what I'm saying? To give somebody that gift that nobody can take away from them. You know what I'm saying? That all of that shitty stuff in their life. And they sit down and I've always thought of it as therapy, man. Always.
Oh, totally.
I don't have to talk to the guy that's tattooing me at all. That pain enough is it. I've always said this to my grandmother when I started getting tattooed. I said, this pain is real. This pain comes and goes, but it's the pain that I choose. It's not the pain in life that it's given to me, the tests that we go through every single day. You know what I'm saying? That shit hurts worse than this pain.
Exactly. And it's nice because it's a release. It makes you feel alive. You're like, oh, I am human. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the pain we go through is mental, daily. You know what I mean? Whether and we don't have to get into it by any means, religion, politics, whatever, the way of the world.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Especially nowadays, dude.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
Social media and everything that we see that's in our face at all times. And there's no escaping it. You know what I'm saying?
No, and that's it. And getting back to, I'm jealous when I see the pictures of you in the kayak. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, dude, I understand that.
Right.
Like in California, I used to go to the beach by myself and just mellow out, listening to the waves. I mean, that sounds really hippie-ish, but you know what?
Not to me, dude.
Yeah, you have to reground yourself. You know, and when the person comes in and talks to me, this is a safe space for them. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, yeah, because I've had clients bring in their husband and wives, whatever, and then when they show up for their appointment, they have their boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, shit, now it's onto the bro code where I can't say anything. Otherwise, X is going to happen and all this other kind of crazy stuff, you know?
Hey, you're not Cheryl.
No, exactly. Exactly. I'm like, oh, okay.
You feel like an ass? You're just like,
totally.
No, I'm Carol. Cheryl's my sister.
Right. Oh, dude, seriously, daily. Yeah. You know, I had just posted that army tattoo, that guy's pixelated camo that I did.
Yeah.
And great guy, didn't have any tattoos. We did his whole forearm. We're doing his upper arm, and he's like, I want this tear out, but I want my military outfit, because he had done like 4 tours. His Jeep ran over a bomb and blew up his back, half his hand, all this. Comes back after 4 tours. Wife greets him at the door. Sorry, I want a divorce, you know, kind of. And you're like, oh, fuck, dude. You know what I mean? And you know, I finished up this tattoo yesterday, and he is
beautiful job too, by the way. Very cool shit.
He's so excited. He starts crying, dude, and you're like, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I start misting up, and I'm like, son of a bitch.
Right.
So 2 grown men standing there, and we're like looking at the ceiling, trying not to cry.
Yeah.
But you're like, this means so much to this guy that he's going to go home, and he wakes up with us tomorrow, and he's going to have the biggest smile. And he's like,
forever.
He's like, this is awesome. This not only seals the deal of what I did overseas, and he had to do some gnarly stuff. He's told me stories, and they were abrasive.
Yeah.
And I'm a horror movie fan, and I'm like, oh, dude, I can't imagine seeing your friend's head explode next to you and getting their brain
I have
pieces.
A friend from the sub-level days, man, that he used to come to the shows all the time, and he did like 4 or 5 tours in Iraq, man, and he when he came back, dude, and he was like a squad leader and shit, and you know, again, we go just to what you said. I'm a horror movie fan. I'm a knucklehead. I love to fight. I used to do all this crazy shit all the time. So the first things out of my mouth were like, how was it? Who did you kill? Wow, you know what I mean? And to see his body language, we're at Gringos, you know, on the end of Mortimer's, and we're in this little bar, and we go outside, and we're smoking, and he's like, hey, man, I want to tell you about what you asked me, you know? Right. He's like, I was squad leader. He was like, when we came back from all those tours, he said, all those guys hated me out there. But when we touched ground here, he goes, everybody cried, and their families hugged me, and they loved me. And and he told me about getting blown up by an IUD and like, you know, having shrapnel in his neck, going in, getting it pulled out, getting shot, getting pills, and back out in the field. You know what I mean? But he explained it like this. He's like, dude, I know you're a tough guy. You're a guy that likes to get into it, mix it up, everything like that. He goes, when you kill someone, he goes, you never want to relive that ever again. And he goes, man, we did a lot of bad things over there. And he didn't go into it. And I said, well, you know, what was it like? You know, did you see people die? You know, this type of shit. And he was like, imagine, and we're inside the bar, and he goes, imagine your barracks being this big. And he goes, you literally play foosball, pool, have drinks, eat meals, you talk and see these guys every single day.
Daily.
And every time you go out and every time you come back, there are multiple people missing from this barracks that is only this big. And I mean, I'm looking in Mortimer's going, holy shit.
No, right? Well,
this is real now. You know?
And that's it. Because obviously the horror movies glorify a lot of stuff, and you're like, oh, that'd be sick. You know, and then you try to put yourself in that position, and you're like, oh, I'd be fine. No, dude, I guarantee not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, growing up in the punk rock scene in L.A., of course, we're down at Fender's, and there's a skinhead Samoan fight. Skinhead gets his head blown off, literally.
Yeah.
And bad Coke deal goes down, and I'm 15.
Right.
There's no reason why I should be down there, but I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. So we all start running for the car. I'm like, holy shit. And this is just coming out of the venue.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, because especially in the 80s, gangs were huge. You know what I mean? It was no messing around.
Yeah.
You had to definitely know where you were. And so...
Because it's like from block to block, too, right? You can't go around the corner because there's another click over this way.
Yep. So, yeah, you hit 13th Street, 13th to Capitol or whatever is this.
Yep.
And from here to here is this, kind of funny, being a big Raiders fan for football. I fly out to California. I'm getting tattooed by my friend in Temecula, right? And he's the bass player for Outspoken, an old straight edge band. And I'm like, hey, dude, can you get us tickets to the Raiders-Rams game in L.A.? And he's like, yeah. So we go, and this is 90s. And it's sketchy as
dude, that motherfucker's no joke, man. Them Raiders fans were mean as hell back in the day.
Oh, bro. Dude. So the joke was that you go to a fist fight and a Raider game breaks out. You know what I mean? So it was chaos.
Hilarious.
Right?
Yeah.
And so my buddy owned a tattoo shop at that time, like I said, in Temecula. And we're sitting there. We're the least tattooed people in our whole section. Dude, girls with SR for Santa Rosa on their face. It's like SR or their head or their hands. And they're
clicked up like a motherfucker.
Oh, dude. Yeah. And then they look at us. They're all, Raiders, cool, right on. You know, we're good, you know. Shit goes down. We got your back. You're like, oh, fuck. It's the first quarter, right?
Yeah.
Behind us, a guy's got his face all painted up Rams. A guy's got his face painted all Raiders. They go fucking nose to nose. And we're literally like, it's going down. And next thing you know, the whole section gets up, and it's a fist fight. Dude, people are punching everything. Literally, this girl punches a dude in the back of the head. He turns around. He punches her in the face. She kind of does the wobbly chicken.
Yeah.
He picks her up and face first into the chairs. And those are hard chairs.
Oh, yeah.
So she pops up, and she's got this egg-shaped thing on her forehead, this big bubble bruise.
Right.
Blood is everywhere. I mean, people are just going at it. This starts the wave. This goes around the arena, like the wave.
Right.
And it goes around the entire first, the upper section, then goes down to the second section. And by the end of the game, it's coming around, and it's right behind the Rams goal post. And literally, we got binoculars, and we're looking, and you see this guy, and he's looking around, and he pulls down a stocking cap, and it's just this big Raiders logo, and he's got the two eye holes.
Yeah.
And he pulls it down, and he just starts swinging. Dude. He's like lawn mowing people. And he gets down to the first row, the first chair, and he kicks this dude in the face. That guy goes out onto the field. He like ends up launching out onto the field. These little fucking carts come zooming over there. They're like during the middle of the game, they like pause the game. These carts are zooming over there. Like the Raiders and the Rams are like watching the fight, and I'm like, what the fuck is even happening? And my buddy's like, dude, you hear gunshots. Jump on the ground. I'm going to jump on top of you, like sandwich you,
right?
Because that's what we have to do.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And so I've moved to Minnesota, and of course, 99 Raiders are playing the Vikings up here, right?
Right.
And so I'm all Raidered out. I go with Sean. He's got a big metal helmet, all this. Guy's kind of giving me shit in the crowd. Raiders suck. And I'm like, whatever, dude. And I sit down next to this lady, and she's like, would you like some peanuts or popcorn or whatever? And I'm like, did you spit on it? Because that's what I'm used to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's like,
here, I'll wipe these with my ass.
No, and that's
right?
it. I'm totally waiting for her to pull one of those, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So totally Minnesota nice. I'm not used to that.
Right.
Okay, and Vikings are kicking our ass. It's first quarter, and I think it's like 21-0.
Yeah.
And I'm like, motherfucker, we are done. This is rough. And of course, this lady's husband is like, hey, buddy, I can't see the scoreboard. What's that score? And I'm like, yeah. Run your mouth when all the zeros are on the board. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Raiders come back and win 28-21, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, buddy, I can't see that score. And he's like, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? And it was funny like that. But it was so funny because it was literally the first football game I've been to that there wasn't major fights or brawls or stabbing or whatever. I'd been a mile high, and I watched the Denver Broncos fans put batteries in snowballs and throw them at the Raider players.
Whoa.
And they're bouncing off their helmets.
Tink.
And then the Raiders are jumping into the crowd and chasing these people. And I'm like, dude, you're here, you're a frat boy.
Yeah.
You're throwing snowballs at these guys who are 300-something pounds.
Exactly.
All padded up.
Yeah.
You are not winning that situation.
Right. Killers, dude.
Yeah. They get a hold of you. You're over, dude. Yep. You know what I mean?
I always think droopy dog fucking gush, gush, gush.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right?
It's hilarious.
So, but yeah, so again, it's kind of funny, you know, just being a Raider fan and seeing them from where they're at. Everybody's like, oh, what do you think of them being in Vegas? I'm like, you know what? If a team were to be in Vegas, it should be the Raiders.
Right.
So, but anyways.
Yeah. Now, I just wanted to kind of touch on the tattoo stuff. I know that, so how long have you been doing it?
Oh, God, I started in 93, 94, so it's, 31 years?
Damn.
Yeah, so.
That's a haul, dude.
Oh, yeah, and again, so going back to the LA punk scene, I was like, wow, this is something nobody can take away from them, blah, blah, blah. I moved to South Dakota, finished high school, finished college to get my bachelor's in computer graphics, marketing, and fine arts, right? So I ended up getting a job being the art director in an ad agency handling Ford, Mitsubishi, McDonald's, stuff like that. So I'm doing the tray liners for McDonald's and shit like that. Totally boring shit, right?
Right.
But at night I could get in and make record covers, flyers, T-shirt designs on the computers, right? Real fun stuff.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Anyways, so then going into art, I was like, man, I'm tired of this. What could I do that I'd really want to excel at? At that time, just had my daughter, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, man, I want my daughter to at least look up to me and be like, my dad said, fuck it, and he's going for it, and he's going to do this. And so I was like, man, I've always been into tattoos. I like tattoos. I have tattoos. Maybe I should get a job as a tattooer. So I go to the one shop in South Dakota, Black Hills Tattoo, and
is it still around?
City.
Is it still around?
Yeah, it's gone through like 7 owners now. You know what I mean? But the original Bill Stewart, who apprenticed me, and I thank him. He passed away here a couple years ago. And
now, how did that come to be? I know it's not an easy thing, especially back then. And now I started getting tattooed right around that time as well.
Right.
Okay. So I know that I've dabbled and I pierced here and there.
Sure.
And I kind of went through a little bit of a piercing apprenticeship with different people, and I bounced shops and hung out with friends that were tattoo artists, and I had a shop for a little while. So I know that it's not a fucking easy thing. You know what I'm saying? You have to find the right guy. He's got to believe in you. You've got to pay a lot of money, and you're teaching someone a fucking skill. A true skill.
Yeah, it's like, oddly enough, like the poor man's college, if you can say that, because you have to learn everything. It's definitely an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So I go to Bill Stewart at Black Hills Tattoo. He tattooed me a couple times, and I'm like, hey, Bill, have you ever thought about taking on an apprentice? And he's like, that's funny you're asking. This kid just came in, asked the same thing. If we don't take him on, we'll take you on. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, God, this kid's probably going to get it and whatnot like that. And kid never ended up showing up. So they called me and they're like,
fucking
hey.
pussy.
Right? Who ends up getting an apprenticeship 15 years later at another shop, which was even weirder. And he got an apprenticeship from my old apprentice.
So is he now, he's still tattooing?
He's dead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, had a heart attack. So, yeah, R.I.P. Gene, you know what I mean? So that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But, so I start working at Black Hills Tattoo, and they're like, okay, right out of the starting gate, how much do you think you want to make this first year? And I'm like, you know what? If you're teaching me to do this and not charging me, you can keep everything I make for this first year. I just want to learn how to tattoo because that's where I'm at. I want to learn.
All right. So how does it start? Like, so you're already into drawing. You're already into doing things like this. What do you start? I mean, what do they start you on? What did you start out doing? Like, what?
Okay. So funny enough, he's like, okay, one, we have to see your commitment. You have to be at the shop every night at 6 o'clock till 10. No leaving early. No nothing. You mop the floors. You scrub the toilets. You do this. I'm going to teach you how to make needles. I'm going to teach you how to make machines. I'm going to teach you how to tune machines. I'm going to teach you how to draw flash. I'm going to teach you how to sell a tattoo. I'm going to, I'm going to tell you
all the good shit.
Yeah, how to make ink.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're like, holy shit, this is a big endeavor. And of course, right then, my ex and I had our daughter, and I'm like, hey, babe, I'm going from this very solid job at an ad agency to tattooing. I'm the rat jumping off the ship, and I got to swim. I got to make this happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I have. So and funny enough, go through this after the first year. He's like, all right, you ready to try your first tattoo? Sure. I got done with that first tattoo, and that's all I ever wanted to do again. I'm like, this is fucking amazing.
Right.
Holy shit. Not the greatest tattoo.
Now, how was the practice back then? Like, what were you practicing on? I know that there's a lot of different things now. They've got fake skin. You order pigs and all this other shit. Like, I've heard so many people doing so much different stuff now. But back then, what was it like?
Dude, it was a rarity. You had to know people who knew people how to get needles, needle bars, tattoo machines. I mean, it was still really underground, really bikerish, very
in that area too, because in the city you could get a lot of that shit, but it would be like janky Spalding and Spalding. What is it? Was a fucking Spalding and Rogers? Was it? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So and or National or whatever at that time.
Yeah.
And so going to Bill, he had been an older tattooer. He was more self-taught than he was anything. So he taught me the basics, but with my art background, I'm like, hey, I could exactly. I'm like, wow, you have a basic color palette. And he was used to very traditional, the rule of thirds, a third black, a third color, a third skin.
Right.
So it was a black outline, red for part of the rose, and then the highlight was just their skin.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm like, well, that seems kind of boring. And I'm like, how about I mix red with orange? Oh, you get a smoother palette. You know what I mean?
Transitions mean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I started doing. And he's like, that's fancy.
You can do that.
Yeah. Nobody's doing that.
So you were actually teaching him things while he was teaching you things all at the same time. That's amazing.
So we played off that, and it was really cool. And then, funny enough, I came up to Minnesota for a tattoo convention at, I'm going to fuck this up. It was, mid-90s. Anyways, I was going to tell you where it was at. It was at some weird hotel / inn, whatever.
Yeah.
And back then, there weren't a lot of conventions at all. You know what I mean? Maybe a dozen in the U.S. Total.
Yeah.
And now there's 6 a weekend.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah. I think there's like 3 or 4 on my calendar already.
No, exactly. And that's exactly. I just got one yesterday saying, hey, one in St. Cloud. I'm like, oh, of course there is, you know. So, but anyways, so I came up here for that show, and that's when I ran into Sean and Steve from Electric Dragonland.
Yeah.
And Steve was just sitting there, and he's kind of a hardcore dude, and he was wearing a shirt, and I'm like, hey, I like that band. He's like, what, you've heard of them? I'm like, yeah, my friends played in this band. He's like, shut the fuck up. I'm from Cleveland. I'm like, oh, my friend Urba's from Cleveland. He's like, no way. I beat up Urba and his brother. And I'm like, no way. So we knew all the same people.
Dude, the same thing, man.
Yeah.
It's a reoccurring thing for you, dude.
Oh, dude.
You'll never not know somebody.
And that's it. I'm like, oh, I went to, DeWitt from Integrity's house. He's like, oh, I knew those dudes.
I beat him up too.
Yeah, exactly. And I got tattooed by the drummer for Integrity. And we just knew each other. And I'm like, cool, well, I got X number of dollars. You want to tattoo me? And he's like, fuck yeah, I got nothing today. So he did my chest panel, a demon head, and it won first place. And that was the first tattoo trophy Steve had ever got. Wow. Steve Sivnar. You know what I mean?
That's so cool, man.
Right? Yeah, it's crazy. Again, small world, So, but I was like, wow, this Electric Dragonland, this is crazy shit. And I loved how they set everything up. It was very clean, very sterile. Yeah. They told you about every process.
Yeah.
And so I went back and took that back with me, and I started applying that to what I was doing up there. And they're like, oh, he goes to one convention. Now he's Mr. Big Balls. You know what I mean? And I'm like, dude, I just want people to have
Well, when your fucking skill stays in one spot and I take things that I learn and now I'm teaching you some stuff, this is the thing that I've noticed, and I don't mean to cut you off, but there's so many things that I see, again, like you said before, about the fucking color by numbers type of thing, right? I've seen so many tattoo artists that are able to take a flash piece and take that color combination and put it on someone, you know what I mean? They're stencil, they throw it in the stencil, but they don't draw.
Nope.
They don't expand their thing, you know what I mean? They don't expand. And that is like there's so many tattoo artists out there like that.
Oh,
I mean, they're very, very few now compared to, these days there's a lot more.
Oh, okay.
The level is fucking here, man.
Okay, so funny enough, seeing this and then taking that stuff back with me, they were like, "Oh, you're Mr. Fancy Pants. You're gonna bag your machines and you're gonna cover your bottles and stuff like that." And I'm like, "Yeah, because look at that is months worth of dirty old ink on a bottle. That's gross. That's all cross contamination.
Right?
We gotta empty that and start all over and do all that. You know what I mean?"
Time, yeah.
And they're like, "Well, that's just a lot of money down the drain, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, okay, well.
Are you keeping your clients safe? Are you doing this?
Exactly. And I'm like, dude, I want to see my clients in a year, 5 years, 10 years and be like, holy shit, not only is that still cool as fuck,
right,
but we've tattooed them and then their kid and whatever, right? So it's kind of funny doing this. And I went to that convention, came back, and I was kind of on weird terms with them. They're like, okay, well, we want you to sign a contract, not a 1 year or 5 year, but a 10-year with us and a no compete. And I'm like, I'm not going to sign
They saw you jump. That's what it was.
Yeah. They go, we want you to sign a 10-year and we aren't going to give you anything less.
That was panic that they saw when you came back.
Right.
That giving you a hard time, that was them going, holy shit.
Right.
This new cat is jumping ahead of us.
And I'm like, dude, that's where I want to go. But I'm like, dude, let's all do this.
Right.
Come on. You know what I mean?
Right.
We all have the skills to move
High
forward.
tide. Right.
Right. And they're like, well, once you leave the shop, don't even think tattoo. And I'm like, don't even think tattoo. Again, I have homework. I'm drawing up big rib pieces. Yeah.
Yeah.
I started tattooing the punk kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I talked to my boss. He'll give, let me do a discount if I can do a giant fucking squid on your ribs or whatever. Yeah. And they were like, fuck yeah. So I'd do that, take pictures, send them into the magazines. Then that started getting the magazines. So, late 90s, I was in a lot of tattoo magazines. Early 2000s, the same thing when I came up here. But long story short, so we're at odds. We have this 10-year contract sitting there, and they don't want to give anything less than 10 years and with a no-compete. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to be here for 10 years doing the same thing. You know what I mean? I want to expand. So I go home and I write a list of all the shops that I wanted to go work for from coast to coast. And I'm like, oh, I got tattooed at Electric Dragonland by Steve Sivnar, and Sean's a great dude. That will be the top one because Rapid City, Minnesota, 10-hour drive, whatever, 9-hour drive, whatever it is. Not bad. And so I had to come out here for a girlfriend's grandma's funeral. And I was dating this gal, and she's great. And she's like, so while we're out there, you can meet with Sean. And I'm like, hey, good idea.
Great idea, right.
Right? So call Sean. He's like, yeah, we're looking for somebody. That's when Steve and Nick had just left Dragonland and went to start Uptown Tattoo. Right? So he's like,
you're talking Nick Scrady?
Yeah, Nick Scrady.
Okay.
So Nick Scrady was Sean's apprentice.
Okay.
And then so Nick Scrady and
that dude's a fucking sick tattoo artist.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, solid.
God.
So, yeah, and
I've
Steve's,
heard about his work since fucking forever.
Right. Yeah, great dude. You know what I mean? Solid artist. So Steve and Nick start Uptown Tattoo. So at Electric Dragonland, it's just Tom Strom and Sean.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we definitely need somebody. And it's funny, love Tom Strom, amazing artist, just sick. He just talked to him here last week. Great dude. Anyways.
That's the one Justin goes through too, and
yeah,
he does art for Justin, those guys, right?
Yeah.
For Simothwa.
Yep. So yeah, Tom did all this.
I knew that I'm something with names though.
Again, here comes the circle again.
Yeah,
Everybody knows everybody.
Uh-huh.
So I come up here and it's a Saturday night. I meet with Sean and his wife Wanda. We do like a 4-hour interview. He's like, dude, I like you. I like your work. You have a job. So whenever you're done at the next shop, you have a booth at my place. I'm like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. Dude, almost throwing up. So excited.
Yeah.
90s, I'm like, oh, dude, Sean's in every tattoo magazine. This is sick. He's like, dude, you're going to go with me all over the country. Get ready. And I'm like, this is awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't care that I'm in the opening act. Who gives a shit? I'm going to learn a lot, meet a lot of people, whatnot. So that was a Saturday. Sunday, we have to go to the funeral. Grandma's passed away. Grandpa's the old World War II vet. No emotion. Looks at me, Dan, this is a tough one. Starts crying. I start crying. I'm like, oh, Jesus. So I go from Saturday night, the highest of high, to Sunday, the lowest of low.
Right.
And I'm like, within 24 hours. And then we have a 10-hour drive back to Rapid City.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, could this be any weirder, right?
Yeah.
Get back. I literally get back at like midnight. Matt Thrash, who was our apprentice at the time, picks me up from Black Hills Tattoo, picks me up at 6 in the morning. We have to drive to Wyoming to tattoo at a bike swap meet out in the middle of nowhere, like Casper, Wyoming, or Cheyenne, or I don't even know, you know. Anyways, and he's like, so are you going to sign that contract? I'm like, no, dude, I got an offer from Sean Anderson. He's like, shut the fuck up. And I'm like, right? And he's like, okay. And so we just had a blast the whole weekend. I get back, and the bosses come up, and they're like, oh, we heard you were looking for another shop. And I'm like, well, I was. I'm not anymore. You know, I didn't say why. And they're like, well, if that's the case, you're fired right now. And I'm like, cool. I'll be working at Sean Anderson's. Here's my number for...
Suck it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And dude, jaws dropped. They're like, you're working where?
Again, dude, that fear.
Yep.
You set those fools off. Regardless of the help and moving forward, like when someone tries to keep you down like that, there's a reason for that shit, man. That's great that you broke the chains of that shit.
And so I'm like, dude, moving to Minnesota, and literally had to sell my house, throw all my shit out. That was the end of 11th Strap because our guitarist had moved to Colorado.
Yeah.
And at that time, so I'm like, good junction.
Everything was timing.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So come out here, live with Sean Anderson for a couple months until I can build enough to get my own place and whatnot. And since then, it's been the roller coaster of life. But dude, I'm still here and I love it.
Right.
I get to do art.
So I've got to ask you this question, man. And I know when I got my first tattoo, it really felt like at that time. So when I turned 18. 90, 91, I think, somewhere around there.
Okay, sure.
So right around that time, it was like the end of an era, really. Okay? Long hairs could still not get jobs readily.
Yep.
You couldn't have any tattoos that's showing at all, really, you know? And I remember going into the first tattoo shop and getting my first tattoo and having that biker mentality, thinking like, oh, I've been through something to get this tattoo. I had to step across the threshold that everybody in my family, none of them had tattoos. You know what I mean? But my mom's boyfriend had tattoos. Right. You know what I mean? So that was my first seeing those tattoos. It was just stick and pokes. You know what I'm saying? But it always caught my eye. It was a dagger on his arm.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so this is my question, dude. When do you think, and did you feel it in that time frame? Because you were coming up in the 90s or whatever. Did you feel the change in, it going from you have to be gone through something or some sort of hardship, or you had to step across the threshold from that point to like it loosening up a little bit, where people are starting to put things in the open. And now, like, moms, grandmas, everybody's got tattoos.
Dude, yeah, I go through the drive-thru at Caribou, and the 20-year-old barista has more tattoos than I do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's got, half her face, and I'm like, oh, yeah. Back in the 90s, that would not fly.
Not at all. Yeah.
One bit. And there was a thing where if you had facial piercings back in the day, you had to take them out or cover them up with a Band-Aid or blah, blah, blah. And now it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, funny enough, in the 90s, man, I walked into Black Hills Tattoo. It was right outside of an Air Force base, Ellsworth, out in Rapid City. Well, actually, Box Elder, South Dakota. And, man, you walked in, you smelled that green soap, and just that aura of fucking unpredictable. It was, the variables were so crazy. You know what I mean? You hear that, and you're like, oh, shit, this guy's slinging ink and he's smoking at the same time, and here's this kid's sitting there getting an eagle or whatever he's
we got to set that.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, the ash is dropping off the cigarette onto the fresh tattoo, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, buddy. That's that. Yeah, no, make it a little darker. You know what I mean?" And you're just like,
"What the fuck?
Yeah, this shit is raw as fuck. You know what I mean? You're just like, "Holy cow!" And just that feeling, and you're like, man, I am on the edge of sketchiness. This is fun. You know what I mean?
I loved it.
Oh, yeah. And, of course, coming in and being early 20s, and Bill was like, all right, well, you get to watch me do tattoos. And he's tattooing some biker lady who's got her tube top down and her big titties hanging out. And he's tattooing. I'm like, oh, I hope you don't mind I'm watching. And she's like, honey, if you ain't seen titties now, then you know what I mean? And so I'm like, oh, okay, that's where we're at. You know what I mean? Because you had to figure out, there was obviously nothing like the political correctness that's today, right? And I think the changing moment was this kid Air Forceman is getting a tattoo. And he's like, I don't feel so hot. And my old boss, Bill, was like, hey, all right, bathroom's right around the corner. Go splash some water on your face, whatever. And just lets him get up with this fresh tattoo, right? He walks around the corner, and you just hear you just hear this giant crash, right? And so we're like, oh, fuck. So we turn the corner, and the kid had passed out as he was walking into the bathroom, bounces his face off the toilet, knocks out most of his front teeth, and is laying there. And my boss goes over and grabs him by the collar, slaps him awake, and he's like, come on, motherfucker, and picks him up, puts him in the chair, finishes the tattoo, gets paid, and he's like, now go to the hospital.
Jesus.
Yeah, and I had to pick up his teeth, put him in a baggie or whatever.
Wow.
But I was like, and that's where we're going. That's going to be my life from here on out.
Yeah.
Just craziness. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And again, I'm 55 now. I've been doing this 30-something years.
Yeah.
See how crazy it's been. And now it's definitely more mellow. There's way more tattooers.
Right.
Our counter girl 3 years ago got an apprenticeship with Sean and everybody in the shop. She got her license, and she was so excited. She's like, oh, my God, it came in the mail. Look, Dan, I'm number 7,923 for Minnesota.
Wow.
And I'm like, holy fuck. She's like, what are you? I go and I get my license. I'm number 2.
Damn.
I'm number 2 in the state. And the person who has number 1 I won't even think tattoos anymore.
Wow.
So I'm like, God, I'm old. And Sean's number 12. He was so pissed I got number 2. He wanted number 1, obviously. You know what I mean? But I was just like, dude, I had nothing to do with it. They just
what year did they enforce that stuff? When did they start? When that had to have been
early 2000s,
right?
Yeah. And again, so with Sean being one of the presidents of Alliance of Professional Tattooists, which is international, we had to not only train the Minnesota Health Department on what to look for, but help them train in their people who go to shops and what to look for and sterility and look at the books and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
And for people that don't know either, that's a huge process for you guys. You've got to send in samples of your stuff.
Monthly.
And it was never like that. When I was coming up, there was fucking none of that.
No.
These guys would do some of the shadiest shit that I have. Man, I remember people. I didn't even want to get into it because it's so fucking horrible when you look at it.
Oh yeah.
And when I did my courses, for Bloodborne and all that shit, man, I sat there and went, holy fuck, are you kidding me? This is insane. Just absolutely insane.
Yep.
When I started to actually deal with all that equipment, you know what I mean, and get to know exactly how fucking nasty that can be.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's it. So we have to do our bloodborne pathogens every year.
Yeah.
and for the longest time, it really didn't change. And then obviously COVID happened, and now there's hepatitis G, H, and so forth. So you're like, oh, I have to learn every variant. I have to learn why this person has these moles or bumps or whatever on their body. Oh, if they have ringworm, I can't tattoo them for X number of months, and they have to get the fungal cream and all this kind of stuff, and it just goes on.
Yeah.
And a lot of people coming up in the tattoo world now, I don't think they understand that there's so much that goes into it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot. Because, again, going back to what you said earlier,
Yeah.
You can literally buy enough stuff off Amazon right now to open a shop,
Yeah.
and it'll be here tomorrow at noon.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where back in the day, you had to know
But you do
somebody.
not want to get caught doing that shit nowadays. You will be fucked. And here's
Yep.
the thing: what I really loved when I was before I now so we opened our shop right before all the regulations really kicked in, and we were up in Isle, Minnesota.
Okay.
Right. We got grandfathered into the area. They didn't make us do a bunch of shit, but we went out and did everything anyway. So we were sampling everything and sending it to people and all of that shit before it was regulated hard. What I love about this now was one of the things that I love the most is that finally artists were like, you can't be doing that shit in somebody's garage. You can't be doing that in a in a crack house, or, you see these scratchers and you see, you know what I mean? That even that term, you know what I'm saying? Like it's such a trip to me that people would even want to,
So funny you even bring that up because, if I bring that up, people are like, oh, you're gatekeeping, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm trying to be real with you. If you're going to make a career out of it, I've been doing this 30 years, pretty much longer than you've been alive. You know what I mean?
Respect to the art, though,
But that's the trouble. They're like, oh, nope, you're doing this, and you're one of the old guys, and and this and that. And I'm like, hey, no, I'm trying to make sure that you can do it safely, correctly. It looks amazing, and you aren't being a jackass. You know what I mean? So calm your fucking
tits, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, bring that down a couple notches and realize we're all on the same page. That's why going to tattoo conventions now, I only know maybe a third of the people.
Right.
And I walk around, and again, I'm smiling. I'm having a good time. I'm like, oh my God, you did that portrait of Ice Cube. That thing's sick. I'm like, you did that? He's like, yeah. I'm like, good job, dude. Fist bump. And he's like, oh. I'm like, dude, I'm not trying to be a tough guy.
Right.
I don't need to be a tough guy. And
I'm established. I don't need to,
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's all support each other.
Right.
So when I first moved here, there was literally like 12 main shops in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it was St. Sabrina's, Ink Lab, obviously Uptown,
Yep.
Acme, all this. And so what I did was I made a list, and I went to each one, and I introduced myself, and I gave them a business card. I'm like, hey, I'm Dan. I'm working at Dragonland now. I go, if somebody comes in and they're running their mouth about me, you call me, because now I know you face to face. I'm taking your card. Somebody does that to you, about you. I'm going to call you and be like, hey, Joe,
dude, I'm going to tell you this right now. As many tattoo shops that I've worked at, that is one of the coolest things I've ever heard, because there are so many fucking assholes out there that shit on the next guy.
Easily.
And again, that's the fear. That's the thing that you think that do you think that the people at McDonald's give a shit about the people right underneath the bridge are at Burger King or KFC?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what it's about. You have to have your nation, what you do, and you know what I mean? We all can make money. We don't have to cutthroat each other.
That's it. So funniest experience, obviously I go to the one over here in Golden Valley, and it's changed its name several times. It used to be Ace. That's where I met Bambi and all those guys, Frog and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah. And they're well established now, still tattooing. Bambi's great. Just saw her. She's amazing. She's up in Fargo this weekend at that tattoo convention. And just to even say there's a tattoo convention in Fargo is weird.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But I go to St. Sabrina's, and that's when it was that 2-story and with like goth, and you could buy candles and all
cool
that
shit.
Oh yeah, dude.
It was so cool.
Yeah, it was definitely pre Hot Topic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was a destination spot for me.
Totally.
I loved going over
Totally.
there. Uptown used to be awesome, dude.
Yep. Yeah, you'd go over to Slug's, vinyl and graffiti store right up the street.
Yep.
And so I go into to St. Sabrina's, and they had all the tattooing and piercing upstairs. And I go up there, and I'm kind of looking around, and somebody's like, "Hey, so can I help you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm Dan from Dragonland. I just wanted to come up and say hi." And literally, everybody stops and surrounds me, like in a circle.
What the fuck you doing here?
Yeah, and that's it. And they're like, "Exactly, what the fuck are you doing here?" And I'm like, "You know what? I'm new to town. I work down here. Again, somebody's got a problem with you, I'm going to call you because now I know you face to face.
Right.
And same with me. Give me a call. We're going to squash the bullshit.
Yeah.
Because I just want this to everybody promote good, solid tattooing. You know what I mean? And they're like,
camaraderie, just fucking all around camaraderie.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And they're like, "Oh, okay." Shook my hand.
Let me put my switchblade away.
Yeah, exactly. No, literally. Shook my hand. Cool. We're off to do this now. And I'm like, cool. See, I'm not a threat.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And going back to those early conventions, man, I watched people tattooing, and their apprentice would come up behind them with 2 chili dogs, put them on the counter behind them. Tattooer stops, doesn't take off his dirty gloves, picks up the chili dogs, eats them, licks his fingers, wipes it on his shirt, picks up the tattoo machine again, and goes back to tattooing. And I'm like, holy fuck. That is so rugged on so many different levels.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, well, that happened. And again, it was, okay, well, I know I'm not ever going to get tattooed by that person.
Right.
And I hope other people saw that, but yeah, it's crazy. Crazy.
The fact that there's so many people out there that have no clue about a lot, you know what I mean? It's advanced so much.
Oh yeah.
From the first time I ever got tattooed to now, and I suppose you being in the business and seeing it come and go. Let me ask you this: what type of machines are you using now?
So kind of funny you bring that up. So forever I was working with the traditional coil machines. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And exactly. When I moved up here, my capacitors were blown. My fucking, they were rough. You know what I mean? About one step up from a prison machine, literally.
Right.
But I could lay in a solid line. I knew how to color because I had adjusted to that machine.
Right. Now, this is all stuff that you learned from the guy from the Black Hills spot, right? Because he specifically said he was going to show you from the ground up.
Yep.
That is the coolest shit ever, too, man. Those old machines are not easy to adjust, and especially because they just hit so hard, man. That the vibrations of it just throws everything out of fucking whack.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So you have one spring that isn't bent right or whatever, or the coil's not attached to the frame correctly, or the yoke isn't, there's so many things.
Variables.
Oh, yeah. And that's it, variables. That now I've switched over to literally the rotary, which looks like an adult toy. Yeah, and you just change out the tips, and literally a monkey could tattoo with it. Literally, I make two adjustments on it, put a needle in, and go. And it takes all the work out of it. You don't have to.
I'm going to take that back since you won't. A monkey could never do that fucking job like that. There's no way.
You might be surprised.
Now I know that there's a huge it's night and day compared to the old machines to those machines, because I've seen them when they started coming into effect. Just the way and how, the soft touch and the way everybody talked about getting I've never been tattooed with a rotary machine, never.
Really?
But I've always heard that the touch is so much different. It doesn't shock people as much.
Oh yeah.
It like keeps them at ease. It's not that you're fucking.
You don't have that abrasive sound and stuff like that. And funny enough, so best example, Rob from Shred Den. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So went from coil to rotary, and he's like, "Oh, that's not bad at all." And I'm like, right? So we'll bang out his shin or the back of his calf or whatever. Sits like a champ. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh my gosh, that's so much better. It's quieter. We can talk."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I go, we can talk. You could sleep. You could do whatever you want. And some people do sleep. But, it's kind of funny because, again, it's a weird bonding experience, And so by the end, you're like, wow. we had this thing, and that's why I like to get to know my clients and whatnot. And again, whether I tattoo them or not, or I see them in 20 years, I'm like, oh, that thing's still awesome, you know. Obviously, some of the artwork's dated, you know. So, but yeah,
dude, that shit you reworked on Mutter. Oh my God, that looks awesome.
Oh, dude. Thanks. Yeah. And Dave's running out of room, and literally, so we're starting to revamp some old stuff. And so I'm like, dude, you're like one of my favorite clients. You come in, and it's like 2 kids sitting there just BSing down, and then I'm like, oh fuck, it's been 6 hours. You know, and we're talking horror bands or whatever. And it, again, just
one of the sweetest dudes ever, man. He's
dude,
so fucking
amazing.
Cool. I'm so glad that I met him and Eric. Those 2 guys are they're sweethearts.
Oh, dude.
They are the type of people, man, that they're happy to see their friends succeed. They're just solid, true human beings, man. I love people like that.
And that's it. And that's what I love about Wolf Mask also. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, cool. And again, my buddy Jasper over in Sweden works for the Swedish rock magazine. And I'm like, Dave, give me the new Wolf Mask. I'm sending that shit to Sweden. Rob, give me the new Glutton for Punishment. I'm sending that to Sweden. So I got a box. I'm filling it up full of stuff, sending it over there so he could review it. And then he hands it out to his friends or guys in bands or whatever. And you know what I mean? So again, small world. Everybody helps everybody out.
Killer, dude. Killer.
Right?
I love that. I love that thought process, man. That's kind of what started this whole podcast too, you know, because I just was so fortunate to have people that believed in me, Don Decker and, you know, Jack Koshik and, you know, just people all around the music scene that gave us great shows. Carcass is on my wall because it's one of those things, but I got into a conversation with another guy today and I started throwing out the list. Like we were talking about DRI and I was like, dude, that's one of my childhood favorite thrash bands. I'm like, when I played with them the first time, and dude, there was a flyer in Shred Den that was on the wall. I didn't even remember playing with them. I was like, I played that show? Holy shit, I don't remember that one. Now that's crazy when you know a childhood favorite band, you played with them and you don't remember that exact show with that lineup, those specific bands. What the hell happened? You know?
No, and that's it. It's kind of funny because I'll get some of those from somebody that, like, hey, you know, you remember when you played this show? And I'm like, oh God, because again, it all blurs together. You were there, you understand. It's the rock and roll lifestyle. You know what I mean? So I was tattooing.
At least you were straight edge for most of it, so you could kind of remember all of that shit. You know? It may blend together, but dude, there are times, like I said, I was down in Shred Den, and I don't even remember that lineup. Like it's DRI, Death Wish, Agony Reigns, Outside the Murder, and then there's one other band on there. And I looking at the flyer, and the flyer itself looks familiar, but I don't remember the show, which to me seems so odd because it's one of my favorite bands since I was a kid. You know what I mean? But the list is so long, and I'm you know, like I'm super fortunate to do all those things. Super fortunate to meet all the people that I've met in my life. So it's like just being able to push people forward in whatever they're doing. You know what I mean?
And that's it. Yeah. Just support people, and that's the thing. And again, with the current situation in the world, it's really hard, dude, man. I'm like, oh, I see people, I'm like, come on. I know you can do it. And they're struggling. There's a lot of people struggling right now, whether losing jobs, you know, whatnot. And it's rough, you know. And
mental health's a motherfucker for everybody these days, man.
Dude, and off camera, we'll talk about some stuff. And but yeah, dude, and I'm like trying to be like positive, and some days it's hard, man. It's hard. I come home and I just literally face plant on the couch, wake up the next morning, still dressed in the clothes I was, you know, slept in. I'm like, oh, I was just exhausted because you mentally take it on every day, you know.
This is exactly the conversation that I had with the cat this morning about that exact thing. He's like, I want to do this podcast. I've watched some of the stuff. I see what you're doing. It looks super fun. I'm all about it. He's like, I'm not really a talker, but I'm like, dude, you've been in bands. you're on this art journey right now, and you're doing amazing things right now. And I'm like, dude, we could sit down, and I go, before you know it, 3 hours are gonna pass by, and
that's it. And that's it. I'm like, oh fuck, it's 10:30 already.
I'm looking at the time, going, holy shit, we've already just went through it like real quick, man.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah. So you just cut me off whenever, because I got stories.
We're right here now. I appreciate you doing this stuff, man. I know that and folks, if you don't know, and I posted it earlier too, Dan's at Dragonland Tattoo, 923 Main Street, Hopkins, Minnesota, 952-933-2097, dragonlandtattoo.com, or you can catch Dan on Facebook as well, and they have
Instagram and
all that stuff. And dude, you're a beast when it comes to promotions too, man.
Thanks.
So you're good at that stuff, and I really appreciate you coming in and sharing the music and sharing the story and everything, man. This isn't the last one. We're gonna do this again, man.
Please.
We're gonna involve more art next time. We'll like bring stuff up, and whatever you got going on, man. I would love to have you back on the show. This has been fun.
Yeah, I'd love to. I got stories for days. We didn't even touch photography.
Right.
We didn't touch gaming. I mean, seriously, this could be a series.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It will be. Let's do it.
Yeah,
dude. I'm totally down, man.
I totally appreciate it. 1,000 thank yous.
Yeah.
Just it made my day. And it's funny, the other night I was so anxious on what I was going to say and what I was going to do, and then I'm like, oh, it's just talking to you. We're just hanging out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you forget about everything around you and whatnot. And it's fun to bring up those old memories, because you're like, wow, that was such a different time and place that I feel bad for some of the kids who will never experience that. You know what I mean?
Now, I got to say this. I want to thank everybody who watches and supports the podcast, because my last guest, Topper Anthony, was a guy that was in town for a long time, and he did a lot of cool music stuff around here, but then moved to LA, and he's been doing a lot of art for I'm not sure exactly what he told me on the podcast, but he's really nervous about coming on here because he hasn't been in the scene for so long, right?
Right.
So he's very nervous. He's like, I don't think anybody's going to watch. And I said, dude, minimum 40 people. And I'm just throwing a number out there. I said minimum. My followers and supporters, and I thank you again so much for this, because him and I went back and forth through this whole thing from the time we did it. We recorded it on a Thursday, we released it on the following Friday, and we watched it through the weekend and then the following week. And then I took that week off, so I gave him 2 weeks of promo for his episode, and it was like, dude, you're at 40. Well, we're already at this mark. Nice. And then I'm like, dude, you're at 80. Holy shit! And it was like, man, I didn't even think. And it was crazy, because he said the same thing. He's like, dude, we didn't touch on this, we didn't touch on that, we didn't touch on this. But after he watched it, he was like, dude, I've got so many more stories. I'm ready for the next episode. I'm like, dude, we'll stretch it out a couple months and we'll get back at it again. Because I love recycling, and you have the experience, you enjoy it, you have a good time. And all of those memories spark up more memories.
Oh yeah,
dude. It's like, I gotta remember that.
Well, that's it. Because literally, you started saying something, and then you went to Wolf Mask, which they remind me of the band Buzz Oven, which Buzz Oven
I
stayed.
can see that.
Yeah, Buzz Oven stayed with me when they were on tour with Neurosis, and I booked those guys too. And last time Buzz Oven stayed at my house, they're like 3 a.m. They're like, Dan, you shoot up? I'm like, nope. They're like, oh, we're going to go out to the Badlands and shoot some dope. And I'm like, okay, well, be careful of rattlesnakes.
Right.
You know what I mean? What?
Right. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At 3 o'clock in the morning, that's what you want to do?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, good luck.
Have fun.
But again, a killer band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And seriously, I think Kirk's the only one who's still alive, because they've had 27 ODs in that band, all heroin, But
crazy life, man. Crazy life.
Exactly.
Dude, I thank you so much for doing this. Also, is there anything else you want to hit or push or pump or anything? Is there any way people can get a hold of you to book things other than right from Dragonland?
Yeah, you know what? You can call the shop. You can Facebook me, Instagram me through Dragonland, through dandittmer.com, through Dan Dittmer, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Pretty easy stuff. You can get a hold of me pretty easily. I do want to thank, obviously, you, Ray, for making this happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm excited because, again, 3 hours, where did that go?
Yeah, right.
But I want to thank all my clients, all my friends, all the bands we played with, friends, family, foe. You know, I'm thankful for everybody because it's all an experience.
Oh, yeah, man.
You know what I mean? It created who I am today. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So
that's awesome, man. Killer, we're going to go out on how do you feel is the last one we're going to do.
All right.
Thank you very much again, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you. And this is one of the first songs 11 Strap ever wrote. So flashback to 95.
Nice. Badass, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. You guys have a good night. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to check out Lowbrow Saints Tattoo Collective. Check out the Shred Den for us. And don't forget, Shred Den this whole weekend has lots of sales going on. Get down there and check out their supplies. They got a ton of amps. They got a ton of guitars. They've got all kinds of stuff on sale down there. Make sure you give them a shout. Check them out. Also, check out Narwhal Design Solutions, Justin Boney. And if you can, and this is very at the end here, please consider donating to the podcast. Just scan the QR code, select a tip amount, and thank you very much for your support throughout all these years. We're going to continue to do as much of these podcasts as that we can. Next weekend, we've got Die Hardcore, which is another Rob Carlson band. So another one. Yeah, they're great. They're great. So make sure you join us next week. Thank you very much for tuning in. You guys have a good night. Enjoy some 11 Strap. How do you feel?
Do 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 do. Down, do 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 do. And then you're back again, say baby, we can just be friends. In your ways you get lazy. A routine, short of stature. How do you feel? How do you feel? Now you haven't done normal. Are you having got a fallback crutch? Are you sad that I am normal? Are you sad you have got it? Fallback crutch. How do you feel? How do you feel? Put me on the ground, spin me all around, put me on the ground, put that fire.
Ritual Man is podcast.